Chapter 1018. The Triple City Extinguishing Arrow, which was Dugu Weiwei's strongest killing move in the past, was now in the hands of an outsider. This made Chu Xiu very surprised, and even horrified. Wei Shiya had already said that Dugu Weiwei's inheritance was very little. The Triple City Extinguishing Arrow was left behind by Dugu Weiwei in the illusion. As for the remaining martial techniques or powers related to Dugu Weiwei, it could be said that Chu Xiu had obtained them through various coincidences. In the end, someone had used the Triple Link City Destruction Arrow overseas. How could Chu Xiu not be astonished? That was because this involved a single matter. That was, whether or not they had found Dugu Weiwei's corpse. Whether Dugu Weiwei was dead or alive was important to others, but it was more important to Chu Xiu. This was related to who he, Chu Xiu, was. At this moment, Chu Xiu couldn't be bothered with Wuxia anymore. He only wanted to know from Ying where he obtained the Triple City Extinguishing Arrow. At this moment, Wuxia shouted, "Ying! Kill him! Kill this bastard!" Although it was Wuxia who had saved Ying's life, even Wuxia could not figure out his background. He only needed to know that Ying was willing to be his shadow for life to repay him for saving his life. That was enough. At this moment, the outside world stopped shaking. The ground cracked open, and mechanical puppets made of metal walked out of the ground. There were more than 100 of them. Some of these mechanical puppets were holding bows and arrows, while others were holding sabers and spears. The arrows containing the pure power of the 5 elements that had been shot at them earlier had been shot by these mechanical puppets. Pak Donglai's expression changed. It's the Prophecy Island. The predecessor of the Supreme Island is actually the Prophecy Island. Previously, Pak Donglai suspected that there was something strange about the Supreme Island itself. Now, it seemed that the strangeness was huge. The Prophecy Island was a big island in the ancient times. It monopolized all resources and utilized the mechanical puppets to the extreme. The puppets made with divine weapon materials could even fight against real fire spirit refinement state. Later on, it was rumored that the Prophecy Island fell into the eye of the sea. Now, it seemed that the Prophecy Island was clearly obtained by Wuxia. He used some means to disguise it and turned it into the current Supreme Island. These mechanical puppets on the Heavenly Fortune Island could still be used. In a one-on-one fight, these things couldn't even defeat a real pellet state martial artist, but at this time, hundreds of mechanical puppets attacked together. The power could already threaten the existence of real fire spirit refinement state. Do you really think that after so many years, I don't have any trump cards and can only be slaughtered by you? These years, I have asked people to repair nearly half of the mechanical puppets. They are indeed the products of the Prophecy Island. The power of each mechanical puppet is comparable to the real pellet state. With hundreds of mechanical puppets, even if the existence of the heaven and earth mystic state comes, I will not be afraid. Looking at those mechanical puppets, Pak Donglai gritted his teeth and said, "For so many years, people have offered some materials for forging divine weapons and things like spirit stones. Even if you can't use them, you still accept them all. Now it seems that you are simply using the birthday celebration to collect the materials to rebuild these prophecy sex puppets." Wuxia touched the beard on his chin and said proudly, "You only thought of it now? It's too late. The materials and spirit stones in these puppets might have been offered by you." In fact, Wuxia was just talking to his heart's content. He wasn't as scheming as Pak Donglai thought. Wuxia liked to celebrate his birthday because he liked to show off. However, after many birthday celebrations, he had accumulated all kinds of materials in his hands, and he couldn't use them. So he remembered that there seemed to be a pile of scrap metal buried under his island. He tried to get someone to repair it, and he didn't expect it to be successfully repaired. "All of you, attack." As Wuxia's voice fell, those mechanical puppets all rushed toward Pak Donglai and others crazily. The strength of these mechanical puppets was indeed not good, but ants could bite an elephant to death. With so many mechanical puppets rushing together, it was not so easy to deal with. At this time, Chu Xiu had already begun to fight with the mysterious shadow. The other party was definitely a demonic cultivator. To be precise, all his inheritance came from the Kunlun devil cult. The aura of the other party and the martial arts he used were definitely the standard inheritors of the Kunlun devil cult. Compared to Chu Xiu, he was even more like a demonic cultivator than Chu Xiu. As Chu Xiu fought, he said, "How on earth did you get your cultivation? What is your relationship with the Kunlun devil cult? Do you know who I am? I am the person who is in charge of the remnants of the Kunlun devil cult." Chu Xiu said so much, but the shadow seemed to not hear him. When he attacked, he was still extremely fierce and didn't hold back at all. Seeing this, Chu Xiu's eyes also showed a hint of coldness. Since he couldn't get an answer out of him, he would capture him first and then slowly interrogate him. Anyway, there were countless ways to torture him. At this moment, Chu Xiu no longer held back. The power of the heart demon began to suppress the power of the evil moon blade. As the slash descended with dense demonic energy, the blood moon in the sky twisted and devoured everything around it. But at this moment, the surging demonic aura around Obscurus condensed. As his palm fell, the giant demonic aura in the air seemed to tear the world apart. It directly grasped the blood moon in its hand and smashed it to the ground. Heavenly Demon Palm. Chu Xiu's eyes suddenly shrank. What the other party used was the Heavenly Demon Palm, an early martial art of Dugu Weiwei. In the primitive demon cave, Dugu Weiwei had once used this palm to smash the evil giant tree with human heads, leaving behind traces of the Heavenly Demon Palm. Chu Xiu saw it very clearly. He was absolutely not mistaken. But according to Lu Jianghu, Dugu Weiwei's Heavenly Demon Palm was only a martial art used by Dugu Weiwei in the early days. He only taught it to the heartless demon venerable. It should be impossible for others to use it. Now that Shadow had even used the Heavenly Demon Palm, it was obvious that he had a deep relationship with the Kunlun devil cult. Chu Xiu snorted coldly and the evil moon blade fell again. The void froze and time and space stagnated. The misty slash fell, instantly splitting everything in front of it and went straight for Shadow. The demon energy around Shadow surged. The powerful demon energy affected the surrounding power, forming a huge demon energy vortex. It directly tore the roof above. But under the power of Chu Xiu's misty slash, the demon energy vortex was forcibly torn apart, and the violent demon energy scattered in all directions. In the next moment, Chu Xiu's devil Buddha Dharma avatar appeared around him. Half of the Mahavarokana Dharma avatar formed the colorless sealing palm imprint, and the other half of the Mahakala Heavenly Devil Dharma avatar appeared in the third eye on its head. Countless pitch-black flames of apocalypse gushed out and shrouded Ing. The Buddhist light suppressed and the world-extinguishing flames attacked. Under this kind of power, Shadow was directly wrapped in it, and his aura was suppressed to the extreme. Just as Chu Xiu was ready to take him down, the aura around Shadow became weaker and weaker. When that aura reached the extreme, a towering demon energy suddenly erupted. A demonic shadow appeared behind him. It was hazy and indistinct, like an ancient demon god. The strangest thing was that there was a pitch-black hole on the demon god's chest. It seemed to be boundless. As the demon god's shadow performed a hand seal, countless world-extinguishing flames were instantly enveloped and absorbed by the black hole on his chest. Shadow let out a long breath, and his aura became even weaker. When it came to power, there were really not many people in the world who were qualified to compare with Chu Xiu. It was the same for him. A demonic chi longbow condensed, and the Triple City Annihilation arrow shot out explosively towards Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu's eyes narrowed. Triple City Extinguishing Arrow? You're too weak. As Chu Xiu's voice fell, he also shot the Triple City Extinguishing Arrow in his hand. But the difference was that Shadow only shot one arrow, while Chu Xiu shot 3 arrows in a row. The first arrow destroyed both of them, but the second and third arrows followed closely. The demon god Shadow behind Shadow seemed to embrace the heaven and earth, hugging the 2 arrows in its chest. In an instant, the 2 arrows were swallowed, and the demon god Shadow completely exploded and melted. Chu Xiu said lightly, "Surrender. You also saw that I know the martial arts techniques that you know, and I know the ones that you don't. In terms of power, you're too weak. If you continue to fight, you'll just die. Don't force me to kill you. As an existence in the true fire spiritual refinement realm, Shadow certainly knew the gap between him and Chu Xiu. But he seemed not to be afraid of this emotion. His whole body was still surging with hot demon energy, and he attacked Chu Xiu wildly. Chu Xiu frowned. It was easy to kill him, but if he killed him, where could he go to get clues? He said to the inner demon in his mind, I'll leave this guy to you. Later, find a chance to enter his heart and build an illusion. Dig out all the secrets in his heart for me. This time, the inner demon hesitated and said, I'll try my best. Chu Xiu frowned and said, last time when you dealt with Kuang Xieyue, didn't you easily dig out the deepest pain in his heart? The inner demon made a helpless expression and said, you humans are the most complicated existence. The strength of the state of mind is not based on personal strength, but on one's heart. For a person with a strong state of mind, even if he is just an ordinary person, I can't do anything to him. But for a person with a weak state of mind, or someone with obvious flaws, even if he is in the mysterious realm of heaven and earth, he will be unable to extricate himself. Last time, the flaw in Kuang Xieyue's state of mind was too big, so big that it could affect his performance. Looking at this guy's performance, I can tell that he is definitely a person with an extremely tough state of mind. I'm not sure if I can succeed. You must succeed. Otherwise, why would I keep a useless person by my side? Why don't I throw him to Master Yuan Ji and the others to study slowly? After saying that, Chu Xiu didn't care about the inner demon's protest and rushed towards Obscurus. Although the inner demon secretly cursed Chu Xiu for being shameless, he had to prepare to attack at any time. He was not a human, but he understood the human heart better than anyone else. What Chu Xiu said was not a threat. He could really do such a thing. Chapter 10:19. Chu Xiu's strength was much stronger than that of Obscurus. If Chu Xiu really wanted to kill him, a single saber intent of the shattering technique would be enough to slice him into two. However, compared to Wuxingzuan and the messy fights in the East Sea, the news about Dugu Weiwei was more important. It could be said that this was the only time that Chu Xiu was serious since he came to the East Sea. Putting away the evil moon blade, Chu Xiu's body was surrounded by Buddha's light. The Mahavarokana made a Buddhist seal and suppressed Obscurus with a strong and overbearing Buddhist power. Obscurus kept struggling as if he was not afraid of death. He desperately tried to kill Chu Xiu. But at this moment, the power of the heart demon had already penetrated into Obscurus's body during the fight. For a moment, Obscurus was stunned. He touched his head and seemed to remember many things. He did not belong to the Breezy Sea, but was a member of the Fenghai Sea. He was one of the few rogue cultivators in the Fenghai Sea. In a tsunami, the ship that he and a few of his best friends were on was completely destroyed. They used all their strength to walk on the water. Although they rushed out of the tsunami, they lost their way. On an island that was not marked on the sea map, they found a cave that was emitting devil chi. The group of people entered the cave, accompanied by devil chi, killing, and all kinds of evil powers. They fell one after another. Finally, he saw what was inside. There were two corpses sitting on bronze thrones. Although they were dead, the devil chi was so turbulent that it was frightening. He seemed to have taken something from there and triggered something else. The memory was very vague, leaving him only fear, the great fear of life and death. In the end, he didn't even know how he escaped from that place. He forgot a lot of things. He forgot his own name. He forgot everything. The only thing he couldn't forget was the things he took out from that place. He had forgotten all the martial arts that he had cultivated in the past, but he had learned the martial arts that he had taken out from that place. However, the price he had to pay was that he had reversed the demonic arts and entered a state of complete chi deviation. He was just one step away from being annihilated. Later on, he was saved by Wuxingzuan. He did not know who the person who saved him was, but he seemed to remember that when he was very young, there was a person called Shifu who told him that the kindness of a drop of water should be returned with a gushing spring. He felt that this sentence was very funny, but he only remembered this sentence, so he decided to do as it said. From then on, he became Ing, the final trump card of Huixingzuan, the Ing that protected him. That hazy feeling completely dissipated. In the next moment, the evil moon blade slashed down with a soaring demonic energy. Shadow subconsciously tried to block it, but the twisted red moon had already shattered his protective true energy. The evil moon blade pierced straight into his chest. You don't even have your memories anymore. Right now, you're nothing more than a walking corpse. Killing you is also a form of release for you. The long blade was pulled out, and Shadow's body crashed to the ground. There was no pain or hatred in his eyes, and of course, there was no release. Because the current him no longer knew what the concept of death was. The heart demon did not dig out all the memories of the other party, only some memory fragments. However, these things were enough to piece together a complete sequence of events. This person was a rogue cultivator from the Windbreaker Sea. He and a group of brothers and friends encountered a tsunami, and accidentally arrived on an island, and found the ruins of a devil's den. In the ruins, many of them died, and in the end, only he survived. He also brought out something similar to a cultivation method, but he was seriously injured, causing him to lose all his memories. Instead, he went to cultivate the cultivation method he took out from the devil's den, but it led to chi deviation, and he was seriously injured. However, this time he was lucky, and he was saved by Huixingzuan, and became his shadow. No wonder this thing looked so strange, as if he had no feelings at all. In fact, he had no feelings at all. When a person lost all his memories, would he still be the person he was? Perhaps in the eyes of others, as long as he had a body, he would be. But to him, he was actually already dead. However, the only pity was that his memory fragments were too fragmented, and some key scenes could not be seen clearly at all. For example, the two corpses sitting on the bronze thrones. He could not see their faces at all. Previously, Chu Xiu thought that one of the corpses was Dugu Weiwei, but after thinking about it carefully, he felt that something was wrong. If it was Dugu Weiwei, then the other person should be Ning Xuanji. However, in Ying's memory fragments, both of them were exuding devil qi. But these were not important anymore. He had already found the general location of that place in his memory fragments. When things here were settled, he would definitely go there personally. But for now, he had to get rid of Huixingzuan first. At that moment, when Huixingzuan saw that Chu Xiu had actually killed Ying, he really panicked. Those mechanical puppets of the Heaven's Secret sect were his trump cards, and Ying was even more so. But now, one of his trump cards was already dead, and the other one would not last long. Those mechanical puppets were powered by extremely precious spirit stones. Once the spirit stones were used up, they would immediately become a pile of scrap metal. In terms of endurance, an existence at the true fire spirit refinement stage was definitely much better than a pile of scrap metal. Looking at Huixingzuan's appearance, Chu Xiu could not help but shake his head. This person was already crippled. Relying on his pair of divine eyes, Huixingzuan had always relied on others for his entire life. How many years had it been since he last fought with others? To be precise, he could count the number of times he had fought with others since he was young. Just now, everyone was fighting fiercely. No matter what, Huixingzuan was at the true fire spirit refinement stage, but he actually did not help Ying or Fu Longshao. In his heart, there was no concept of fighting with others. The path of martial arts was the path of war and killing. A martial artist who had even forgotten how to kill was not trash. What was he? Seeing that Chu Xiu's saber was coming towards him, Huixingzuan shouted and immediately sent the sword ball in his hand forward. This sword ball was given to Huixingzuan by Qiu Tianya to protect his life, and its power was indeed somewhat beyond imagination. After all, it was refined by an expert in the path of the sword for a year. However, no matter how powerful the sword ball was, it was still a dead object without sentience. In other words, even Qiu Tianya did not expect that his godfather would actually provoke an expert of Chu Xiu's level. Boundless apocalyptic flames were released, directly wrapping around the sword ball. In an instant, tens of thousands of sword chi from the sword ball shot out at the same time, strangling the apocalyptic flames. The apocalyptic flames were extremely sticky, and once the sword ball was entangled, it could not escape for a while. The next moment, the evil moon blade in Chu Xiu's hand slashed down, heading straight for Huixingzuan. In a panic, Huixingzuan's earth energy exploded from his body, but it was chaotic and disorderly. Even Chu Xiu did not know what he was trying to do. After so many years, he couldn't have really forgotten how to fight with others, right? However, all of this was no longer important. The crimson evil moon twisted all the power, and the evil moon blade easily pierced through Huixingzuan's entire body. Instantly, a large amount of blood spewed out of his mouth. I've said it before, those who want to be my father have never had a good ending. Evil moon blade was pulled out, and Huixingzuan's corpse was thrown to the side. At this moment, all the mechanical puppets present froze in place, and some even exploded. Back when he was repairing these mechanical puppets, Huixingzuan still had some tricks up his sleeves. These mechanical puppets could only be controlled by his imprint and blood. But now that he was dead, the imprint was naturally broken. These mechanical puppets had all lost their effectiveness. Fu Longxiao's expression changed, but it was already too late. Pak Donglai, Ko Shentong, and Yi Bushuan attacked together. With the sudden explosion, Fu Longxiao did not even have the time to burn his blood essence before he was killed on the spot. The important figures on Supreme Island were all dead. What was left were the useless martial artists from the Hua family. Pak Donglai was still in a daze. His plan actually succeeded just like that. After being stunned for a while, Pak Donglai then cupped his hands respectfully towards Chu Xiu and said, "If it wasn't for official Chu, not only would we not have been able to kill Huixingzuan, we would probably have to stay there." Official Chu definitely played a huge role in this success. This time, Pak Donglai admitted that he had really underestimated Huixingzuan. Although he had expected that Huixingzuan would definitely have some trump cards in his hand since he had been an honorable in the breezy ocean for such a long time, he did not expect the trump card to be so powerful. The mysterious man in black was actually able to fight with Chu Xiu for such a long time. His abilities could be said to be rather terrifying. After all, when Chu Xiu killed Nailan Hai and Bailey Paubing back then, he did not even use a few moves. Actually, Pak Donglai had misunderstood this point. Although Ing was slightly more powerful than Nailan Hai and Bailey Paubing, he was not as powerful as he had imagined. It was not difficult for Chu Xiu to kill him. However, in the beginning, Chu Xiu wanted to capture him alive and interrogate him for information, so he did not kill him. If Chu Xiu really wanted to kill him, Ing would not be able to resist Chu Xiu for such a long time. "Mr. Bo, there's no need to be so courteous. We each get what we need. As long as Mr. Bo does not forget our promise, it will be fine," Chu Xiu said calmly. Pak Donglai quickly said, "Official Chu, don't worry. I will deal with this as soon as I deal with the remaining members of Sovereign Island." After witnessing Chu Xiu's abilities, Pak Donglai did not have the slightest intention of going back on his word. Moreover, he did not have the right to go back on his word. Although they had killed Huixingzuan and the martial artists of Sovereign Island, it did not mean that Pak Donglai could become the most powerful person in the breezy ocean. There was no longer a huge mountain above him, but there would still be many small mountains. Right now, he, Ko Shentong, and the others were the strongest cultivators of the breezy sea. Only when they joined forces would their words be effective. Otherwise, they would still be fighting on their own, like a pile of loose sand. Chapter 1020. The complete annihilation of Sovereign Island caused a huge uproar in the entire East Sea. In any place, it was not easy to overthrow a force that had ruled for more than 100 years, as it had already become a habit. Now, this inertia had been broken, and the entire East Sea had fallen into chaos. However, Pak Donglai, Ko Shentong, and the others were now the largest force in the entire East Sea. Under their joint suppression, the entire breezy ocean adapted to the new order in an extremely short amount of time. As long as it was in the Jianghu, be it in the Central Plains or overseas, it was like a pyramid. It was not a big deal for the upper levels of the pyramid to have problems. What was troublesome was the lower levels. Moreover, Huixingzuan had dominated the cool breeze sea for 100 years. Apart from his title of God's Eye, which people took delight in talking about, Huixingzuan's reputation was not considered good. Without the support of the Eye of God, Huixingzuan was just a mediocre person. His martial arts talent was mediocre, and his vision was narrow. He could only be considered to be a little smart. Pak Donglai and the others did not hide the details of the annihilation of Sovereign Island. If they told others about it, it would actually increase their power. Moreover, most of the people were killed by Chu Xiu, so they did not dare to hide Chu Xiu's power. When they found out that Huixingzuan also died in Chu Xiu's hands, everyone shook their heads and sighed. Fate really made a fool out of people. Previously, everyone had heard that Huixingzuan wanted to adopt Chu Xiu as his son during his birthday celebration, but they ended up falling out. Now, it seemed like Huixingzuan's Eye of God did not lose its effect. Chu Xiu was indeed incredibly talented. He killed almost all the higher-ups of Sovereign Island all by himself, and he killed spiritual refinement realm cultivators like slaughtering chickens and dogs. However, it was a pity that those who were chosen by you, Huixingzuan, didn't necessarily have to join you, Huixingzuan. On the contrary, there was a possibility that they would be the ones to send you to your grave. Huixingzuan relied on his pair of God eyes to rise to power. In the end, it could be said that he also died under his pair of God eyes. This could be considered as fate. After the news spread, Pak Donglai gathered everyone to discuss the matter of attacking Eastern Qi, and everything went smoothly. Chu Xiu's might had already spread throughout the cool breeze ocean. This had also greatly increased everyone's confidence in Chu Xiu. As long as they could occupy a part of the border of the Eastern Qi coast, they would have made a huge profit. After everything was prepared, Chu Xiu did not waste any time and immediately prepared to return to Eastern Qi. Before leaving, Pak Donglai and the others personally came to see Chu Xiu off. Official Chu, don't worry. The forces in the East Sea have begun to gather. Once the plan is completed, they will attack the border of Eastern Qi coast at the first opportunity. Chu Xiu nodded and said, I believe in Mr. Bo's strength. This is only the first cooperation, and there may be opportunities for us to work together in the future. I don't know what the situation is in the northern Yan coast, so I won't delay any longer. Everyone, farewell. After saying that, Chu Xiu immediately boarded the ship and left with Yi Bushuan. Watching Chu Xiu's departing figure, Pak Donglai suddenly sighed and said, until today, I seem to have understood a truth. Why is Kang Dongming so obsessed with martial arts? The path of martial arts is as vast and boundless as the East Sea. All our schemes are just like a boat sailing on the sea. It seems stable, but in fact, it can't withstand a single wave. Kang Dongming is such a person, and so is Chu Xiu. In the face of absolute power, even a giant steel ship can't withstand a single blow. Ko Shentong also sighed and said, I also understand this truth. Everyone wants to see where the end of the sea is, but unfortunately, the more profound one's cultivation is, the more afraid one is of the road ahead. Before I stepped into the true fire spirit refining state, I was also obsessed with cultivation. Every time I went into closed-door training, it would easily last for several years. But now, closed-door training for more than a year is rare. Experts like Pak Donglai and Ko Shentong, who were able to reach the true fire spirit refining state, naturally had talent and perseverance. At this time, they spent most of their time currying favor with other forces instead of practicing martial arts. This was not because they slacked off, but because of fear. As Pak Donglai said, martial arts was like this boundless sea, and no one knew where the boundary was. When they first started practicing martial arts, they thought that the real pellet state was the limit. Later, when they reached the real pellet state, they thought that the true fire spirit refining state was the strongest. When they reached the true fire spirit refining state, they discovered that in the face of the heaven and earth mysterious realm powerhouses, they were just slightly stronger ants. They couldn't see the boundary, so they were afraid because they didn't know what the road ahead was. People like Kang Dongming's character and Chu Xiu's dedication to power, only such people might be qualified to reach the peak. Let's go back and summon all forces to discuss and attack Eastern Qi as soon as possible. This official Chu has a promising future, and it's always right to be on good terms with him now. Pak Donglai said this not because he also had the divine eyes and was really optimistic about Chu Xiu's future luck, but because Hu Xingzuan had already set a negative example. Be on good terms with Chu Xiu, gain power and gain benefits. Become enemies with Chu Xiu, report to the underworld. At the same time, while Chu Xiu was planning everything overseas, the Northern Yan side was almost unable to resist. The national power of Eastern Qi was stronger than that of Northern Yan, and similarly, the power of Eastern Qi was also much stronger than that of Northern Yan. Within the borders of Eastern Qi, Northern Yan Daoist sects and righteous sects had joined forces, and the Yinma clan almost couldn't resist the pressure. The Guanzhong torture room had already retreated, but at the border between Eastern Qi and Northern Yan, 7 of Eastern Qi's 9 strong armies suddenly pressed forward, almost causing the Northern Yan side to collapse. Beigong Bailey was also a ruthless man. He directly mobilized 1/10 of the entire 5th Army to fight the enemy, disregarding the casualties. When the number of dead had reached a certain level, he lured the enemy deeper into the battlefield and set up a blood-refining formation on the battlefield, directly killing one of the 9 Eastern Qi armies. At the same time, his own people were also killed in the formation. It could be said that killing 1,000 enemies came with 600 casualties. The entire blood-refining formation stretched for dozens of miles. Within the formation, blood filled the sky, and all life was extinguished. The Eastern Qi side didn't even dare to send large numbers of troops to fight to the death. They could only launch small surprise attacks, afraid that Beigong Bailey would come up with another plan to kill them. This man was practically a madman. When he went crazy, he would even kill his own people. It was only because of Beigong Bailey's prestige that the Northern Yan side didn't mutiny. Otherwise, if it were anyone else who dared to do such a thing, they would probably have killed themselves first. In the military camp at the border of Northern Yan, Jianghu held a banana in one hand and a defensive map in the other, carefully studying it. From time to time, he would take a big bite out of the banana, as if he was biting the scum of Eastern Qi. At this time, Beigong Bailey opened the tent flap and walked in. He was no longer dressed in a scholar's robe when he was in the Northern Yan court. Instead, he wore a scarlet armor, and the murderous aura around him seemed to solidify. Seeing Beigong Bailey enter, Xiangwu handed him a banana. Beigong Bailey shook his head and asked, "How's the situation on your side?" Xiangwu's expression was solemn. "It's not looking good. I've already pulled back the defensive line by more than 10 miles. I'm using the terrain to deal with them. It wasn't easy to defeat the Eastern Qi's Flying Bear army, but I didn't expect the Imperial Guard to catch up. However, that bastard Nangong Weiyu seems to be injured. Even his flashy halberd is gone. Now he's fighting me with an ordinary precious weapon, but he couldn't hold on after a few blows. If it weren't for that old bastard's speed, would have crippled him on the spot." As he spoke, Xiangwu took a big bite out of the banana and swallowed the last bit into his stomach. Beigong Bailey furrowed his brows. "The Imperial Guard is here too? I just killed one of their armies. In the blink of an eye, they have sent out another Yulin Royal Guards. Doesn't that mean that there is only one army guarding all of Eastern Qi?" Xiangwu spread his hands and said, "There isn't even a single army left. A while ago, West Chu had already acted. Yuan Fu, that jade-faced fat dragon, led the Langia army to the West Chu border, but he could only delay the last army of Eastern Qi. West Chu's strength is too weak, and this is already their limit. Otherwise, if all 9 armies were to come, we would be under even more pressure. Now that Eastern Qi's internal and external forces are moving, as long as the imperial city is protected by experts, what do they have to fear? We can't just fly over and kill Lu Haocheng, right?" At this stage of the war, it was no longer a matter of strategy, but a matter of basic strength. Eastern Qi's national strength was too strong. Once they went all out, the the Northern Yen could only choose to defend with all their might. Beigong Bailey waved his hand. Even if we can't hold on, we have to hold on until Lu Haocheng can't hold on any longer. Eastern Qi's strength is strong, but perhaps the heavens didn't let Eastern Qi have the luck to unify the world. The successive generations of Eastern Qi's emperors were all mediocre. Our Northern Yen has the determination to fight with all 5 armies, but Eastern Qi's heart aches at losing even one army. If we can't take down Northern Yen in the end, the last one to retreat will be Eastern Qi. The last war between Northern Yen and Eastern Qi ended in the same way. Actually, Northern Yen didn't win, and Eastern Qi didn't lose either. It was just that Lu Haocheng's character was there. He was used to being cautious and didn't want to gamble too much, so he didn't continue to attack and cut his losses in time, tacitly agreeing that Northern Yen would tear Wei Jun apart. Now that decades had passed, LV Haocheng was already old, and his boldness was probably not as good as it was in the past. Now, he only wanted to pass on the throne safely and steadily, and he probably could not withstand any more setbacks. Xiang Wu looked to the east, a rare look of worry on his face. We can still hold on for a while, but Wei Jun will have to face the entire Eastern Qi's righteous martial world, and the attack of Jiangshan Pavilion. I don't know if they can hold on. Speaking of which, where did Chu Xiu go? Can he be more reliable? He disappeared at the critical moment. I won't treat him to bananas next time. Chapter 1021. Xiang Wu had said that the situation in Wei County was terrible, and it was even worse than what he had said. Wei County was now called Wei Country. Jiangshan Pavilion's newly established Wei Country took the lead and recruited all the warriors in Wei County as the vanguard to attack. The Rivers and Mountains Pavilion didn't have any other advantages. Its only advantage was that it was rich, very rich. For so many years, Jiangshan Pavilion had relied on the power of Huixingzuan to almost monopolize the overseas trade with the Central Plains. They had even robbed a lot of business that originally belonged to the Cetacean Society. They had accumulated a lot of wealth over the years. Brave men were bound to be motivated by generous rewards. Although the warriors in Wei County were xenophobic, under the enticement of Jiangshan Pavilion, they obediently followed the orders of Jiangshan Pavilion and acted as the vanguard. Apart from these, Chunyang Dao sect, Real Martial Arts sect, White Tiger Hall, and a group of Eastern Qi Orthodox martial artists joined in, putting great pressure on the Jinwu Hall. At the moment, the ones in charge of defending Wei County from the Northern Yen Kingdom were the Jinwu Hall, as well as the people from the Yinma clan brought by Wei Shia, as well as the people from the Imperial Consecration Hall led by Xiang Chong, and even some experts from the Northern Yen royal family. Although the number of people gathered in Wei County was not as many as at the border, they were all high-level warriors, and the fight was fierce. Most importantly, at the border, Beigong Bailey could still rely on his ruthless strategy and arrangement of troops to restrain Eastern Qi. Over at Wei County, at this point, no matter what strategy you had, it would be useless. It was all about strength. At this time, in a small town near Mount Shangmang in Wei County, Wei Shia and the others were all there, but they did not look well. Almost all of them were injured. There was still Shangmang Mountain between the Wei County and the Eastern Yen region of the Northern Yen Kingdom. They had already fought once before, and the result was that the Northern Yen Kingdom was defeated and lost Shangmang Mountain. They were forced to the Eastern Yen region. In the last battle, Ling Yunzi of the Chunyang Dao sect had attacked directly. The power of the heaven and earth mysterious realm was simply invincible. Although Shang Tianliang's comprehension ability wasn't bad, and his cultivation was already comparable to Ling Yunzi's, his combat strength was still a level lower than Ling Yunzi's. It wasn't because of his own strength, but because of external forces. In a battle between experts, even the slightest gap could determine victory and defeat. Shi Yunzi had activated the pure yang divine weapon with his blood essence, and Yun Mengzi had taught Ling Yunzi a secret magic that had been lost in Chunyang Dao's sect for a long time, which allowed him to activate the mark on the pure yang divine weapon and defeat Shang Tianliang. At the same time, Wei Shia and the others began to fight with the warriors from Jiangshan Pavilion, Chunyang Dao sect, True Martial sect, White Tiger Hall, and the Northern Yen righteous martial arts world. This group of people originally had a large number of people. Even on the side of the righteous martial arts world, several hidden rogue cultivators had been invited. They were all experts of the true fire spiritual cultivation realm. In terms of high-end combat strength, they also crushed the people from the Jianghu Hall. The people from the Jianghu Hall were almost forced to retreat in defeat. In the end, they had to rely on Xiang Chong to use the origin of the dragon vein in the 9-dragon seal to repel the opponents. However, they had to give up Shangmang Mountain. The origin of the dragon vein could not be used easily. Otherwise, once the origin of the dragon vein was damaged, it would be a great blow to the fate of the northern Yan nation. If the next attack was still so fierce, the people from the Jianghu Hall could only retreat again and again. At this time, seeing that the atmosphere in the lobby was a little tense, Lu Jianghe couldn't help but say, "I say, everyone, don't look like your mother died, okay? Chu Xiu hasn't come back yet. He is our last trump card." Among the people present, almost everyone had some injuries. Only Lu Jianghe's face was ruddy and quite healthy. Although he had reconstructed his body before, the number of people who died in the inheritance war was too small. It was not enough for him to return to his peak. In this war between the righteous and demonic factions, there were too many people participating in the war. The martial artists on both sides added up to more than 100,000. The last war was even more bloody. Almost everyone in the true fire spiritual cultivation realm was injured, and several people in the real pellet state had fallen. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Jianghe absorbed the vitality in the battlefield. It could be said that he was getting stronger and stronger. He took this opportunity to restore to his peak state. Of course, it was useless. Lu Jianghe's peak state was only at the peak of the true fire spiritual cultivation realm. At that time, he was still shouting like a retard on the battlefield that Blood Sea Demon, was finally back. As a result, in the blink of an eye, he was besieged by Yun Mengzi of Chunyang Dao sect, Han Jusi of True Martial Cult, Helian Changfeng of White Tiger Hall and 2 True Fire Spiritual Cultivation Realm Masters of Eastern Qi Royal Family Hall. Although he always shouted that he was Blood Sea Demon, he was not the real 4 demon seniors after all, so he couldn't affect the overall situation of the war. Mei Qinglian glanced at him and said, "You have confidence in Chu Xiu." Lu Jianghe laughed twice and didn't speak. He didn't have confidence in Chu Xiu, but he had confidence in Dugu Weiwei. Dugu Weiwei and the sect leader were very entangled. In any case, no matter what the reason was, he didn't believe that Chu Xiu would lose so easily. Therefore, he was very confident that when Chu Xiu returned, it would be the time to turn the situation around. Of course, to be more realistic, he had to think of a way to block the current attack first. His eyes rolled. Lu Jianghe suddenly said to Mei Qinglian, "You are the descendant of the darkness demon sect, right?" Mei Qinglian was surprised and said, "Yes, why?" Everyone knew her identity. Why did Lu Jianghe suddenly mention this? Lu Jianghe touched his chin and said, "To be honest, I don't like people of your sect. In the Saint sect, your darkness demon sect's ancestor was very gossipy and always liked to talk bad about me. But now, we are all on the same side, so I will give you something good." Under Mei Qinglian's puzzled gaze, Lu Jianghe imprinted something on a blank jade slip and threw it to Mei Qinglian. After receiving it, Mei Qinglian asked curiously, "What is this?" Lu Jianghe chuckled and said, "Of course it's something good. It's some of Red Lotus Demon Venerable's insights on the heart-refining art of the Red Lotus fire. It's not a cultivation technique, but it's more useful than a cultivation technique. In the past, your Yin Demon sect's ancestor worshipped the Red Lotus Demon Venerable the most. He followed behind the Red Lotus Demon Venerable every day and even wanted to become his disciple. The Yin Demon sect's immortal maiden great art was able to bring disaster to the gods' hearts. It would bring disaster to others, and it would also cause chaos to others. The karmic fire of the Red Lotus refines oneself first, then others. The two have the same effect, but it's obvious that the karmic fire of the Red Lotus is a level higher than your beauty demon sects. You know Li Jiaodi. She obtained some of Red Lotus Demon Venerable's cultivation technique and cultivated the karmic fire of the Red Lotus, but it's not. If you can comprehend something with this insight, even if you can't cultivate the karmic fire of the red lotus, it can still bring your beauty demon technique to the next level. You are still one step away from refining your spirit with true fire, but if you can use the karmic fire to refine your heart, you might be able to take this opportunity to reach the next level. First the heart, then the spirit. Before Mei Qinglian could calm down, Lu Jianghe turned his gaze to Lu Fengxian and said, "You're cultivating the nine heavens fiend golden body of the ancient demonic god Lu Wenhou. That brat Chu Xiu is also cultivating this cultivation technique." Lu Wenhou's strength can be said to be the #1 battle general since ancient times, so in terms of cultivation technique, you have no flaws. Furthermore, although you have great luck, your foundation is solid. Breaking through to the true fire spirit refinement realm is only a matter of time. If you want to improve as soon as possible, you can only think of a way through experience. This is the insight left behind by Demon Venerable Jianghu. He was the #1 battle general of my holy sect. Even if he can't compare to the legendary Lu Wenhou, he still has his merits. This body refining insight is to use battle to nurture battle. The battlefield of the righteous and demonic factions will be a place for you to temper your body. Only in desperate situations can you have a big breakthrough. After throwing another jade slip to Lu Fengxian, Lu Jianghe did not wait for him to speak. He turned his gaze to Ren Xianxiu of the Phaseless Demon Sect and threw him a jade slip as well. "I have some friendship with the ancestor of your Phaseless Demon Sect, and we even discussed the martial Dao. Demonic formless, mystical arts without spirit. The martial Dao of your Phaseless Demon Sect should be between the three branches of Dao, Buddha, and Demon. However, when I saw you on the battlefield, the martial Dao of your Phaseless Demon Sect seems to have a gap and has lost the charm of the Dao. The things in here should be able to help your cultivation further." Seeing that Lu Jianghe threw out so many good things in one breath, everyone present couldn't react. After a long while, everyone remembered that Lu Jianghe was not just a hall master of the Blood Demon Hall. He was a living fossil who had personally experienced the peak of the Kunlun Devil cult. When the Kunlun Devil cult was destroyed, whether it was the direct descendants of the Kunlun Devil cult or branches like the Phaseless Demon Sect, their inheritance was almost broken. As Lu Jianghe, who was from the same generation as their ancestor, he could be said to be a living fossil. As long as he casually revealed something from his mouth, it would be of great benefit to the current inheritors of the Kunlun Devil cult. After a long while, Mei Qinglian asked, "Why didn't you take these things out before?" Lu Jianghe spread out his hands and asked, "Why should I take them out?" Everyone present was stunned for a moment, but then they laughed bitterly and didn't say anything. Previously, they felt that Lu Jianghe was a little eccentric. To be precise, he had been eccentric since 500 years ago. However, now it seemed that he was able to sit in the position of Hall Master of the Blood Demon Hall 500 years ago and become a subordinate of the Kunlun Devil cult, second only to the 4 great demon lords. How could he be an idiot? Lu Jianghe didn't do this for Wei Shuya. He could wholeheartedly treat Chu Xiu as an inheritor and hand everything over to Chu Xiu. He was very clear about his position. To be precise, he helped Chu Xiu in exchange for benefits. Chu Xiu hadn't reached the level of Dugu Weiwei, so he wasn't qualified for Lu Jianghe to wholeheartedly serve him. Today, he took out these things because the situation was really critical. Even if he didn't care about Chu Xiu, he had to do his best on the side of the devil path. Chapter 1022. The situation in the subduing martial hall had reached a critical point. Even though Lu Jianghe had brought out so many good items, it was useless. Martial arts could not be mastered in a short period of time. Even if they comprehended it now, it was impossible for them to jump to the true fire spirit refinement realm. At this moment, someone suddenly came in to report that Situ Chi and the others had come to visit. Everyone present frowned. No one thought that Situ Chi and the others had come for a good thing. Everyone knew about the enmity between Situ Chi and Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu had attacked them more than once or twice. Now that Chu Xiu was in danger, Situ Chi and the others should be thankful that they did not hit him when he was down. They did not think that they were here to help. Although they belonged to the Lurking Devil clan, they did not think that they would let go of their enmity for the sake of the entire Lurking Devil clan. Compared to them, even the sects of the Bright Devil clan from the moon-worshipping cult were more reliable. Before Wuxia could say whether or not he would see them, a shout came from outside. Situ Chi and the others had barged in. There were a total of 5 true fire spirit refinement realm martial artists who had come in. Besides Situ Chi and Kun Mo, the other 3 were the ones who had escaped from the primitive devil cave in the past. They were the 3 big shots of the devil path 800 years ago. No one knew how they had gotten together. Looking at them, Wuxia frowned and asked, Situ Chi, what are you doing here? Situ Chi smiled and said, Elder Wei, don't be angry. I'm here to help. I've heard about your situation. It's not looking good. We're all from the Lurking Devil clan. How can we sit back and do nothing? Although Senior Si Wuya is a cultivator from 800 years ago and has nothing to do with the Kunlun Devil cult, they're still from the Fiend Path. They're willing to help at a time like this. Wuxia said indifferently, don't say such high-sounding words. Do you really have such good intentions? Before Situ Chi could speak, Si Wuya, the former Grand Elder of the Ghost King sect, said, the righteous path and the Fiend Path are irreconcilable. We're all from the Fiend Path. Is it wrong for us to help them? Of course, there's a small condition for us to help them. Now my Devil Path lineage is divided into Bright Devil and Hidden Devil lineage. Even the Hidden Devil lineage is fighting their own battles. This is not good. That's why I want to emulate the system from 800 years ago and establish the alliance of the demonic path. Whether it's an individual or a sect, everyone can join. Naturally, everyone can also join. Wuxia will give you a position as an alliance elder. Everyone's expressions darkened when they heard this. These fellows weren't here to add insult to injury. They were here to loot a burning house. The Hidden Devil clan itself was an alliance. Why would they need an alliance? But who was in charge of the Yinma clan now? On the surface, there was no one in charge of the Yinma clan, but in reality, the one who occupied the majority of the Yinma clan's power was Chu Xiu. He could now be considered the true leader of the Yinma clan. Si Wuya and the others wanted to form an alliance of the Fiend Path. They were clearly trying to dig out the roots of the Lurking Devil progeny. Wuxia looked at Situ Chi and said coldly, Situ Chi, don't forget that your clan used to be from the Holy Sect. What's the foundation of the Hidden Devil clan? We're the heirs of the Holy Sect. We established the Hidden Devil clan with the Holy Sect's heritage as our foundation. By helping them establish the alliance of the Fiend Path, you're digging up the Hidden Devil clan's roots and the Holy Sect's roots. How can you face your ancestors if you do this? Before Situ Chi could reply, Si Wuya said, what do you mean by the Holy Sect? That was 500 years ago. The Kunlun Devil cult has been gone for so long. What's the point of carrying its name? You have to look forward. In terms of seniority, we're all older than your so-called Holy Sect. Lu Jiang, he suddenly sneered. He stood up and pointed a finger at Si Wuya's nose as he spat, F***CK. You. Mother***Ker. Si Wuya and the others were stunned. They did not expect Lu Jianghu would insult him in front of so many people and use such vulgar language. They were experts in the true fire spirit refinement realm. Whether it was now or 800 years ago, whether it was on the noble path or the fiend path, they were people of high status. Even if they had a deep grudge against each other, they would not curse each other the moment they met. Si Wuya pointed a finger at Lu Jianghe. He was so angry that his hands were shaking. Preposterous. Preposterous. Lu Jianghe spat on the ground. He sneered disdainfully and said, a bunch of wretches. When the sect master founded the holy sect, you idiots were like this. You won't shed a tear until you see your coffin. You'll only kneel and beg the sect master to spare your lives. The holy sect will last for 10,000 years. 10,000 years ago, if the holy sect did not exist, the fiend path did not have an orthodox lineage. However, ever since the holy sect was founded, 10,000 years later, even if the holy sect is no more, the fiend path is still the orthodox lineage. How dare trash like you come and dig at the foundation of the holy sect? Do you have a death wish? As soon as Lu Jianghe finished speaking, the murderous aura around him surged into the sky. A rhythm resounded in the great hall. It was the sound of blood flowing. The expressions of Si Wuya and the others changed. In the end, they did not make a move. They merely waved their sleeves and left. One of them scoffed and said, "Very well. Since you're so stubborn, I'd like to see if your holy sect can still save you when you're cornered by the noble path." After that, Si Wuya and the others left with their tails between their legs. They were here to loot a burning house, not to fight to the death with Lu Jianghe and the others. The expressions of the others darkened. Clearly, they were disgusted. Situ Chi and the others had completely shed all pretense of cordiality with the lurking devil progeny. They did not even want to think about saving face anymore. However, the lurking devil progeny still had powerful enemies with them. It would not be appropriate for them to attack them. At this moment, everyone looked at Lu Jianghe in surprise. They did not expect Lu Jianghe to have such a domineering side to him. All this while, they did not have much respect for the hall master of the Blood Devil Hall 500 years ago. Naturally, with Lu Jianghe's silly appearance, they could not bring themselves to respect him. However, today, he was domineering for once. He finally felt like an overlord of the fiend path. When Lu Jianghe saw the gazes on him, he could not help but smile wickedly. "If the heaven-devouring tiger doesn't show its might, do you really think I'm a garden cat?" However, his smile completely dissipated the imposing manner from before. The crowd could not help but shake their heads. Well, Lu Jianghe is still the same Lu Jianghe. The crowd did not have time to waste. Almost all of them were injured, so they had to make the best use of their time to recover from their injuries and deal with the next attack. At this moment, in the middle of Shangmang Mountain, there was a large number of camps. They were all people from the major factions. Some of them were rogue cultivators. In order to fight for fame and profit, they also joined the team to kill the fiends. Yunmengzi and Han Jusi stood at the forefront. As the people who were driving this operation, the two of them could be said to be the leaders of the righteous path sections. When they gave orders, they were even more in the limelight than Ling Yunzi and Lu Changlu. It was fortunate that Ling Yunzi and Lu Changlu were not narrow-minded people. Otherwise, they would have to fight amongst themselves before they could settle the matter. Looking at the surrounding scene, Yunmingzi suddenly sighed and said, "Brother Han, do you remember the battle 800 years ago when our Dao sect joined forces to expel the Buddhism from the Central Plains? At that time, it was also the same scene. Even at that time, the diabolism could only order us around. I did not expect that now. It is our turn to regard the diabolism as a great enemy. 800 years ago, the Jianghu was in chaos. The temples and the Jianghu were in endless war, and it was even more chaotic than now. At present, the two most powerful Buddhist sects were in the north. The Great Light Temple was in the north, which was a bitter and cold land 800 years ago. And the Subodhi Zen Monastery was in the southern barbarian land. Until now, it was still a desolate place. At that time, the Central Plains naturally had the Buddhism. However, at that time, the Buddhism was expelled from the Central Plains by the Dao sect. At that time, the diabolism was still in a state of disunity. The Kunlun devil cult did not appear. Everyone fought on their own. It could be said that they were the weakest among all the forces in the world. Han Jusi said in a low voice, "Now the diabolism is indeed strong. The moon-worshipping cult of Western Chu used to be a small sect in the Miao territory. I did not expect it to grow into a giant. There is also the Yinma clan. I heard that they are only the remnants of the Kunlun devil cult. But the remnants are already so powerful. It is hard to imagine how strong the Kunlun devil cult was in the past. In short, we must be careful. The next time we attack, we will strive to completely defeat the other party. Then, we will inform the Eastern Qi Imperial Court to send troops to attack the Northern Yan from the gap we have torn open. We will leave the matter of seizing cities to them. 800 years ago, this was a trick that Han Jusi and the others often used. The Jianghu forces were responsible for defeating the other party's high-end forces. Then, the imperial court's army would come to clean up the mess. This time, they wanted to do the same, but they did not expect that the resistance they encountered would be so tenacious. Although the other party was defeated, they did not collapse. Yunmengzi looked at the small forces and the other martial artists and snorted coldly. My Chunyang Dao sect may be declining in this era, but our disciples are still capable. There are no cowards who are afraid of death. But these guys are too hateful. They only know how to fight when the wind blows. They can't hold on after suffering a setback. They are defeated before the other party is defeated. If it were not for them, we could have completely eliminated the Yinma clan last time. Han Jusi shook his head. Everyone in the world comes for benefits. This group of people came for benefits. How can you expect them to put their lives on the line? But it does not matter. As long as they can make a move, it will be fine. Right, have you sent someone to inform Sword King's city that they have returned? Yunmengzi's expression was slightly gloomy. They have returned, but Sword King's city's attitude is unclear. It seems that Jin Chanfeng has no way to deal with his juniors. They don't even have the right to express their opinions. Han Jusi waved his hand. Forget it, let's not wait for them. We have enough strength here. This time, we must completely defeat the Yinma clan. Chapter 1023. At the border between Shangmang Mountain and Eastern Qi, tens of thousands of martial artists' gang Qis flashed, and a strange phenomenon appeared. Sensing that the righteous martial artists had already made their move, Wuxia and the others did not care whether their injuries had healed or not, and immediately rushed forward to meet them. Shang Tianliang's face was a little pale. He snorted coldly and said, Chu Xiu is too scheming. Guarding against I is like guarding against a thief. If he was at ease and let I bring out all the people in Shang City, they would definitely be a great force to be reckoned with after cultivating in the outside world for a while. This time, Shang Tianliang had also attacked with all his strength, but he was still no match for Ling Yunzi, who was wielding the pure yang divine weapon. Wuxia did not say anything. He sighed and said, City Lord Shang, if we really can't hold them off, you take your men and retreat first. I will cover their retreat. The surrounding people wanted to say something, but Wuxia shook his head and said, there is no need to say anything more. This old man does not have many years left to live, but you are different. As long as the green hills last, there is hope. As long as there are people, the lineage of Yin Mo will never end. Wuxia was very open-minded about matters of life and death. In the past, 4 of the 5 sky demons of 9 Sky Mountain had died. His 4 brothers had allowed him to live for only one reason, to leave a seed for 9 Sky Mountain. Now, Wuxia had the same idea. Mei Qinglian, Lu Fengxian, and the others were all seeds of the demonic lineage, and Chu Xiu was even more so. As long as they could live, he had nothing to fear even if he had to risk his life. There was great terror between life and death, and he had already seen through this terror 100 years ago. Mei Qinglian and the others wanted to say something, but Wuxia pointed to the front. Yunmengzi, Han Jusi, and the others had already led a large group of righteous martial artists to attack them. Both sides were already in a situation where they would not rest until one side was dead. Yunmengzi and the others knew that the demonic lineage would not surrender. Similarly, Wuxia and the others also knew that the righteous lineage would not retreat. So there was no need for words, and they would just attack. Ling Yunzi wielded the pure Yang Dao sword and attacked Shang Tianliang. The pure sun divine armament shone brightly and there was even a rhythm that affected the surrounding laws of power. That was the mark of Ancestor Lu on the pure Yang divine weapon. Ling Yunzi had obtained the secret art from Yunmengzi, and he could finally unleash the full power of the pure Yang divine weapon. Ling Yunzi shook his head and said, I can tell that you're not a member of the demonic path. Since that's the case, why do you insist on helping Chu Xiu to the end? Shang Tianliang snorted. In fact, at the very beginning, he had only served Chu Xiu because he wanted Chu Xiu to bring out all the people from the mall. After witnessing Chu Xiu's strength and power, Shang Tianliang had other thoughts. Shang City's people suddenly appeared in Jianghu. Dao was not Dao, Buddha was not Buddha, and devil was not devil. They definitely had to choose a faction to support. The person he chose was Chu Xiu. He believed that with Chu Xiu's potential, he would go further in the future and even reach a realm that even he couldn't imagine. Now, he was fighting to the death with the righteous path for the sake of the Yinmo lineage, not only for Chu Xiu, but also for himself. When Ling Yunzi saw Shang Tianliang's attitude, he didn't try to persuade him anymore. The pure Yang Dao sword bloomed with extreme pure Yang light. In an instant, everyone seemed to see a second sun. At the border of the righteous and demonic battlefields, there were dozens of sword-wielding warriors standing there. They were the people of Sword King City. Sword King City had been invited by Han Jusi and the others to annihilate the demons, but they didn't take action in the end. Strictly speaking, Sword King City wasn't a righteous sect. In fact, the immoral things they had done in the western regions were even worse than those of the demonic path. Therefore, Sword King City didn't seem to care about the demonic path's actions this time. However, this battle between the righteous path and the demonic path would affect the development of the martial arts world in the Central Plains. Even if Sword King City wasn't prepared to take action, they had to come and watch. At that moment, on Sword King City's side, a tall and thin sword-wielding warrior with a mustache snorted. "I've already said it before. Stand on the side of the righteous path and kill the demonic path. This will definitely be of great help to Sword King City's power. I'm very familiar with Yunmengzi and Han Jusi. They are both outstanding figures of the Dao sect 800 years ago. Now that they have joined forces, there's no reason for them to lose. It's such a big matter, and we, Sword King City, are only spectators. It's such a waste." The person who spoke was called Jin Chanfeng. He was one of the warriors from 800 years ago and one of Sword King City's elders. However, compared to Han Jusi and the others who could control part of the sect, Jin Chanfeng was much more unlucky. None of the three from Sword King City were easy to deal with. Heavenly King Shen was domineering and dictatorial. Meng Yanghe was extreme and gloomy. Apart from Heavenly King Shen, he wouldn't listen to anyone. Duguli was a warrior of the older generation and a member of the former royal family. He had a fiery temper. Sometimes, when his temper flared up, he even dared to scold Heavenly King Shen. Given the personalities of these three, it would be wishful thinking for Jin Chanfeng to seize power from them. When the righteous path had invited them to take action, Jin Chanfeng had wanted to agree. However, he had been rejected by Heavenly King Shen and the other two. To Heavenly King Shen and the others, true fire spirit refinement realm cultivators were indeed something they needed. It should be said that all large sects needed them. However, what they needed were obedient true fire spirit refinement realm cultivators who were on their side, not people who stirred up trouble from the sidelines. What did their ancestors from 800 years ago have to do with them? If they were dead, they would respectfully pay their respects. If they were alive, sorry. It was not like 800 years ago anymore. If they followed the rules, they were still a member of Sword King City. If they did not follow the rules, they would be considered traitors. Who knew, they might even want to punish them. At that moment, no one cared about what Jin Chanfeng and the others had said. Duguli turned to Fang Qi Shao and asked, "Seventh young master, who do you think will win?" Fang Qi Shao stood stiffly in front of the big shots of the sects, looking rather serious. Although he was an unreliable person, he still knew how to read people's expressions. If he dared to say anything inappropriate now, he would probably die a horrible death when he returned to Sword King City. Upon hearing that, Fang Qi Shao did not even think about it. He only said in a low voice, "I don't know who will win, but I know that the hidden demons will definitely not lose." Heavenly King Shen was surprised. "Why? Just because of Chu Xiu? You think so highly of Chu Xiu?" Fang Qi Shao nodded. "It really is because of Chu Xiu. If Chu Xiu dies, I dare say that the hidden demons will definitely lose. But if Chu Xiu is still alive, even if he is the only one left in the entire hidden demons, he will still be able to make a comeback. Jin Chanfeng could not help but snort. 800 years ago, there were countless amazing talents in the pugilistic world, but what happened in the end? Human strength cannot defeat the heavens. There are many heroes in every era of the pugilistic world, but how many of them can survive until the end? What right does Chu Xiu have to do that? Fang Qishao glanced at him and said lightly, because Chu Xiu is the first person I dare not say I can surpass. Heavenly King Shen could not help but be surprised when he heard Fang Qishao's words. Although Fang Qishao was usually unruly and even gave Heavenly King Shen headaches, they knew how talented Fang Qishao was. Under that unruly appearance, he was very proud. Before Chu Xiu became famous, Fang Qishao had fought with both Zhong Xian and Zhang Qingzhen, but he had lost. But even if he had lost, Fang Qishao had never been convinced by his opponents. He had never thought that he was weaker than Zhong Xian and Zhang Qingzhen. Life was only a few hundred years. If he could not enjoy himself, then what was the point of living? Swordsmanship was his passion. Drinking and visiting brothels were also his passions. If Fang Qishao could spend all his time cultivating swordsmanship, with his talent, he would definitely become a powerful swordsman like Qiu Tianya and Kang Dongming in the future. But everyone had their own way of living. Fang Qishao did not want to live like Zhang Qingzhen and Zhong Xian. It was not that he did not care about cultivation. It was just that there were too many interesting things in the world. He did not want to let them go. Heavenly King Shen was very clear about Fang Qishao's thoughts. That was why he was surprised to see Fang Qishao praise Chu Xiu so much. Fang Qishao's words proved that, in his opinion, even if he was a swordsman and cultivated crazily every day, he would still not be able to catch up to Chu Xiu. At that moment, Fang Qishao suddenly said, "Of course, this is only in terms of strength. In terms of looks, other than brother Lu Fengxian, I've never been afraid of anyone. Other than the sword in my hand, I also rely on my face to make a living. The last time I went to the Floral Moon House, those girls were shocked by my handsomeness and elegance. They did not even have the nerve to ask for money. I was already one street away, but they were still chasing after me." Heavenly King Shen's face immediately darkened. "Drag him away." Bai Qian, who was following behind Heavenly King Shen, shook his head. He covered Fang Qishao's mouth and dragged him to the back, not letting him express his proud words. It was Jin Chanfeng's first time seeing Fang Qishao like this. He could not help but be stunned. He said to Heavenly King Shen, "Is this the future successor of Sword King City?" Although Heavenly King Shen felt embarrassed, he still snorted coldly and said, "Why? Are you not convinced? When Fang Qishao reaches the true fire spirit refinement stage, you can fight him. If you can win, I will give you the position of Sword King City's sect leader." Jin Chanfeng shook his head. He really believed it. The reason was simple. Based on Fang Qishao's behavior, if his talent in Sword Dao was really not good, he would probably have been hung up on Sword King City's banner long ago. Meanwhile, on the battlefield between the Orthodox and demon sects, although Fang Qishao thought highly of Chu Xiu, the hidden demons were already on the verge of collapsing before Chu Xiu even appeared. In the previous battle, almost everyone from the hidden demons' side was injured. This time, the Orthodox sects had made another move. Under the pressure, the hidden demons were already in a precarious situation. Chapter 1024. On the stalemate battlefield, the Yinma clan had begun to collapse. Compared with the righteous sects, the composition of the Yinma clan was simpler and more united. Zhenwu Hall guarded the forces left by Chu Xiu. The Yinma clan guarded the bottom line of the demonic path. Xiang Chong and others of the Northern Yan clan couldn't retreat. Therefore, they all had the determination to fight to the death, but unfortunately, in the face of absolute power, a little determination couldn't save the situation. There were too many people on the righteous sect side. If you repelled one, there there would be another 2 immediately. Now Mei Qinglian had this feeling. She was actually not very good at this kind of fierce battlefield. The enchanted girl technique was unknowingly bewitching. In this kind of fierce battlefield, the evil spirits soared into the sky. Everyone's body would unknowingly be contaminated with some evil spirits, which had some impact on their own mental power. It also caused the effect of the enchanted girl technique to be greatly reduced. For real pellet state martial artists attacked her wildly. 2 of them were martial artists of the Chunyang Dao sect. His pure yang aura was extremely restraining to Mei Qinglian. The other 2 real pellet state martial artists of the righteous sects attacked wildly, forcing Mei Qinglian's figure to turn into a demonic mist. She flashed and moved, but she was gradually forced into a dead end by the pure yang aura. Enchantress. Die. Seeing that Mei Qinglian had been forced into a dead end, the 2 Chunyang Dao sect martial artists shouted at the same time, and the pure yang aura on their long swords skyrocketed. Kill the evil, subdue the demon. At this moment, Mei Qinglian's mind couldn't help but reverberate with the Red Lotus Demon Venerable's experience on the Red Lotus Hellfire that Lu Jianghe had given her. The Red Lotus Hellfire could refine one's mind and soul. One must first bear the roasting of the hellfire in order to truly refine the Red Lotus Hellfire to burn others. At this moment, Mei Qinglian's mind was completely relaxed, and her mental power also drifted away. However, it wasn't attacking the opponent in front of her, but immersed in her own mind. In an instant, illusions appeared in front of her eyes. Some were good, some were bad, some were good, some were what she wanted in her life, and some were things that she couldn't ask for in her life. She was the holy maiden of the Yin demon sect, but in reality, many people had called her a demoness. In the past, when the Yin demon ancestor was still around, she could be carefree and use her talent to tease the young elites of the righteous path. Her temperament was weird, and compared to her current enchanting appearance, it was like they were 2 different people. That was the happiest time of Mei Qinglian's life, until the destruction of the dark demon sect. She was the sole survivor of the Yin demon sect. What she carried on her was the inheritance of the Yin demon sect, the future of the Yin demon sect. However, no one knew that she wasn't good at these things at all. However, for the sake of her responsibilities, for the sake of her seniors who had died in the past, even if she wasn't good at it, she had to carry it on her shoulders. That was why the weird holy maiden of the Yin demon sect became the enchanting Madame Mei, hiding in the Guanzhong torture room. You could say that she was bearing the burden, or struggling at death's door. At that time, Mei Qinglian didn't have a goal, until she met Chu Xiu. She didn't know when it started, but she didn't have to think about so many things. She only needed to listen to Chu Xiu's orders. This kind of life was actually very relaxing. It seems like I've always been a stupid woman. Mei Qinglian sighed helplessly. Who said that the holy maiden of the demonic path had to be sinister, ruthless, and full of schemes? She had endured for so many years, and perhaps today was the day she saw herself clearly. The karmic fire of the Red Lotus refined the heart and soul. If she couldn't see herself clearly, how could she use the karmic fire of the Red Lotus? Just like Li Jiaodi, she was stubborn all her life, but she got the Red Lotus hellfire in the end. This wasn't like an opportunity, but more like irony. The next moment, the dazzling red hellfire on Mei Qinglian's arms bloomed. It burned all the way to the 2 disciples of the Chunyang Dao sect along the pure Yanggang Qi. The 2 of them screamed in an instant, and a large amount of hellfire bloomed from their 7 orifices. In less than a second, the 2 of them had fallen to the ground, and they were completely lifeless. Hellfire tempering heart. Obviously, they didn't survive this. When the other 2 real pellet state martial artists saw this scene, they turned around and fled directly. But the next moment, Mei Qinglian waved her hand, and a red lotus bloomed between their eyebrows. The boundless red lotus hellfire surrounded them and instantly swallowed them. The red lotus hellfire was colorless and formless. As long as you had negative karma in your heart, no matter where you hid, the red lotus hellfire would bloom and burn in your heart. Lu Jianghe, who was being besieged by Zhao Yuanfeng of Jiangshan Pavilion, took a look below and saw that Mei Qinglian had really comprehended the Red Lotus Hellfire. He was really shocked. In the past, the 4 demon venerables of the Kunlun devil cult were strong because they were almost the best among the same realm, whether it was the true fire-tempering state or the heaven and earth mysterious state. Back then, Red Lotus Demon Venerable relied on the Red Lotus Hellfire to dominate the martial world. It was unpredictable and impossible to guard against. Previously, Lu Jianghu just saw that Mei Qinglian's state of mind was somewhat similar to Red Lotus Demon Venerables, so he gave her the Red Lotus Demon Venerable's insight with a trial attitude. He didn't expect her to really cultivate it. Of course, Mei Qinglian could only be considered to have cultivated half of it, because what Lu Jianghu gave her was only insight, not the Red Lotus Demon Venerable's inheritance technique. In the past, Red Lotus Demon Venerable still had countless secret techniques and killer moves that had to be used with the Red Lotus Hellfire. Now, it definitely couldn't be used. At this time, Lu Jianghu subconsciously turned his gaze again, but when he saw the situation on Lu Fengxian's side, he widened his eyes in horror. If Mei Qinglian's breakthrough was still considered common sense, then Lu Fengxian was purely a monster. She simply didn't play by the rules. At this time, Lu Fengxian's performance on the battlefield was also very dazzling. The demon god unparalleled halberd that he inherited from LV Wenho was originally a martial art that could exert its greatest effect on the battlefield. The unparalleled halberd danced and swept across the area. When it smashed down, the ground would shake. Its power was unparalleled. Shui Wuxiang and the other 3 guarded around Lu Fengxian to prevent anyone from sneak attacking Lu Fengxian. The 4 of them had also recovered to the real pellet state at this time. At this time, they were fighting with Lu Fengxian. They actually had the feeling of following LV Wenho to conquer the world. When the 5 of them joined forces, they even beat more than a dozen real pellet state martial artists to retreat step by step. They didn't dare to fight head-on at all. With Lu Fengxian's powerful halberd, they would either die or be crippled if they were hit by it. Previously in the underworld, Lu Fengxian had some fame, but it could only be said to be a little famous. Not to mention compared with Chu Xiu, among the martial artists of his generation, even Zhang Qingjin, Zhong Xian, and Fang Qishao were more famous than him. Moreover, Lu Fengxian had always been relatively low-key. As a result, when they went to the battlefield this time, they knew the horror of Lu Fengxian. Especially this time, after Lu Fengxian read the physical cultivation experience of Zhan Wu Demon Venerable, he had a deeper understanding. His power on the battlefield was simply immeasurable. However, his high-profile actions had also attracted the attention of others. Mako Mori broke away from the battle with Wei Shuya and let others continue to block Wei Shuya. He stepped forward and came in front of Lu Fengxian. He grabbed with one hand, and a dazzling pure yang aura burst out. He directly grabbed Lu Fengxian's unparalleled halberd in his hand. Feeling the unparalleled power, Mako Mori's complexion changed slightly. He really didn't expect that a real pellet state martial artist would have this kind of power. But with a difference of one realm, Mako Mori was still one of the few older martial artists who could still maintain their combat power after cultivating for more than 300 years. In terms of strength, he was much more powerful than Lu Fengxian. With a wave of one hand, a powerful pure yang aura burst out, directly blasting Lu Fengxian away. Looking at Lu Fengxian, who retreated for hundreds of meters, Mako Mori stood with his hands behind his back, and he said slowly, "Lu Fengxian, I have heard of your name. Although you always hang out with Chu Xiu, you only inherited the ancient demon god Lu Wenho's technique, but you are not an orthodox demonic cultivator. Your friends in the past are all saying that you are loyal and willing to do anything for your friends. For so many years, you have never done a bad thing, and I believe that you are not a bad person. However, why do you choose to help the wicked? Chunyang Dao's sect abhors evil, but they don't want to kill innocent people. Lu Fengxian, you should retreat. Don't continue to embark on the wrong path. The monks have a saying that is very reasonable: repent and you will be saved." Lu Fengxian shook her head and said, "Taoist priest is wrong. I have never felt that I am very loyal, and I have never felt that I am a good person. When I stepped into the martial world, I once asked my master what is chivalrous and whether I want to be a chivalrous person or not. Master only told me one sentence: do what you think is right. If you think it is wrong, do it. Chivalrous for the sake of chivalrous, that is not really chivalrous. It is not easy for a person to live up to his own heart in this life. I, Lu Fengxian, came from a humble background. I have no interest in governing the world, nor do I have the ability to make everything peaceful. As long as I live up to my own heart, my life is not in vain. Whether Brother Chu is a righteous or a demonic cultivator has nothing to do with me. I only know that he is my brother and good friend. When I was in danger, he saved me and helped me. If someone treats me well, I will repay him tenfold. I don't know if the path I am walking on is right or wrong, but today, I don't want to turn back. Even if I turn back, there is no shore. As Lu Fengxian's voice fell, the unparalleled divine weapon in his hand bloomed with a dazzling light. The unparalleled demonic god halberd was used to the extreme by him. Every strike of the halberd seemed to have the power to shatter mountains and break rivers. The demonic aura surged and roared, even causing the wind and clouds in the air to howl angrily. That power was infinitely close to the true fire spirit refinement state. Mako Mori did not want to kill a good person by mistake, but Lu Fengxian refused to come to his senses, so he had no choice. He held the Dao sword in his hand and lightly tapped it. Compared to the mighty demon god unparalleled halberd, the minute amount of pure young astral chi was only a tiny bit weaker, but the power that exploded out was enough to send Lu Fengxian flying again and again. But at this moment, Mako Mori was shocked to find that every time Lu Fengxian was sent flying, the whistling demonic aura in the air became denser. In the end, the demonic aura actually formed a huge tornado and surged into Lu Fengxian's body. Why did this scene seem so similar to the scene of breaking through to the true fire spirit refinement state? Chapter 1025. There had been breakthroughs in battle before, but most of them happened below the real pellet state. There were only a handful of people who broke through in battle above the real pellet state. Whether it was condensing martial Dao true pellet or tempering true fire spirit refinement, these realms were extremely dangerous. Once something went wrong, it was easy to fail, leading to the abolishment of cultivation. Therefore, 99% of the martial artists would find a safe place to break through again as long as they had the conditions. Not to mention that the state was unstable during the battle, there was also the enemy nearby. How could they let you break through safely? But now Lu Fengxian's state was indeed very similar to the scene caused by the true fire spirit refinement state, tempering the essence soul with the internal fire and then attracting the power of heaven and earth. However, whether Lu Fengxian was going to break through or not, Mako Mori couldn't ignore it. Shou Zhenzi's figure flashed and he rushed towards Lu Fengxian. Shui Wuxiang and the others wanted to block him, but they were all sent flying by Shou Zhenzi. But at this moment, in the huge demonic chi vortex above Lu Fengxian's head, a hazy phantasm appeared faintly. The phantasm was wearing black armor, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. Only the scarlet eyes could be seen faintly. The unparalleled relic was held in the hands of the phantasm. As it roared, the wind and clouds gathered, and the sky changed color. Demon God. LV Wenho. This was the last trace of imprint left by LV Wenho in Lu Fengxian's body. As he stepped into the true fire spirit refinement state this time, it was completely integrated with him. Other people tempered their own essence soul in the true fire spirit refinement state, but Lu Fengxian also tempered the essence soul imprint left by LV Wenho when he stepped into the true fire spirit refinement state. The demon god phantasm smashed down with his halberd, and the monstrous demonic chi seemed to be tearing the ground apart. The power was simply immeasurable. Mako Mori's complexion changed suddenly. He turned from offense to defense. His hands successively engraved countless pure yang Dao patterns in the air with pure yang chi, condensing into a barrier in front of him. But in the next moment, the halberd smashed down. The pure yang Dao pattern didn't even last for a breath of time before it shattered. Mako Mori's entire body was sent flying by the halberd, smashing into the ground thousands of feet away, creating a huge crater. Mako Mori struggled to get up. His face was pale as he coughed. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. That halberd strike just now was not Lu Fengxian's power, but an ultimate strike left behind by the demon god Lv Wenho. Even if it was just a mark, it was not something that Mako Mori could easily resist. At this time, the demon god's shadow had already begun to distort in the boundless demon chi vortex. Finally, it all entered Lu Fengxian's body. In the blink of an eye, the aura around Lu Fengxian's body began to rise, and in the end, it skyrocketed to the level of the true fire spirit refinement realm before stopping. Lu Fengxian had attracted the attention of more than half of the people on the battlefield. Stepping into the true fire spirit refinement realm in the face of battle was something that could be called a miracle, but they actually saw it. Carrying halberd, Lu Fengxian was still a little confused at this moment. In fact, he did not have any plans to step into the true fire spirit refinement realm. It should be said that no matter what realm he broke through before, it was all up to fate. He cultivated when he needed to cultivate, and rested when he needed to rest. Therefore, almost every time he broke through a realm, it was as if success came naturally. This time, perhaps because Mako Mori had given him too much pressure, this also led to Lu Fengxian actually stepping into the true fire spirit refinement realm in this state. Of course, this was also a good thing. Although the Hidden Devil clan had one more true fire spirit refinement realm warrior, it could still reduce some of the pressure. Therefore, Lu Fengxian did not care that he had not adapted to his current strength. He directly took halberd and attacked Mako Mori again. On the battlefield, although Mei Qinglian and Lu Fengxian had made successive breakthroughs, it was very difficult to reverse the situation of this kind of battle without the help of the heaven and earth mysterious realm powerhouses. Therefore, the situation did not change much. The Hidden Devil clan was still at a disadvantage. Shang Tianliang was almost unable to hold on under Ling Yunzi's pure yang sword. Wuxia was besieged by 3 true fire spirit refinement realm warriors and could not hold on any longer. After all, Wuxia was not young anymore. Although his combat strength was amazing, the longer this went on, the more he was at a disadvantage. Among the people besieging Wuxia was Yunmengzi of the Chunyang Dao sect. As the former head of the 6 spiritual masters of the Chunyang Dao sect, Yunmengzi, who was at his peak, might not lose even if he fought Wuxia one-on-one. However, he chose to besiege Wuxia so that he would not waste too much of his strength. During the chaotic battles of the pugilistic world 800 years ago, there were many more situations in which people besieged each other than one-on-one. Yunmengzi had adapted to this fighting style. Seeing that Wuxia was almost unable to hold on any longer, Yunmengzi's eyes flashed with killing intent. On the long sword in his hand, a thin golden light appeared. With a point of his sword, the pure yang sword chi strangely condensed into an imperceptible sword thread and pierced towards Wuxia. Wuxia's expression changed when he sensed this power. He wanted to stop it, but he was held back by the other 2 people. He was a step too slow. The sword thread was unusually sharp, so it directly pierced through Wuxia's vital energy shield and penetrated his body. In an instant, with the sword thread as a guide, an endless amount of pure yang qi penetrated Wuxia's body. With a loud bang, he was sent flying, spitting out blood. Wuxia looked at Yunmengzi in astonishment. Although his martial arts were the same as the current Chunyang Daoist sect, his fighting style was different. In fact, there was even a hint of malice in it. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Wuxia looked around. Even Shang Tianliang, who was the strongest on their side, was showing signs of being unable to hold on. With a sigh, Wuxia shouted, "Retreat." Yunmengzi snorted coldly and said, "It's too late to retreat now." As he said this, an endless amount of pure yang energy condensed on his long sword. As the sword slashed down, a long and narrow sword light spread out for hundreds of feet. It danced in the air like a waterfall, drawing on the power of heaven and earth. It formed a dazzling golden storm, which directly smashed down on Wuxia. When it was time to kill, Yunmengzi did not hesitate at all. He did not attack, but once he attacked, he would definitely kill. As a Taoist priest of the Chunyang Dao sect, when he attacked, he was as ruthless as an assassin. Wuxia had previously said that he would stay behind to protect the Yinma clan one last time, just like how his 4 brothers had protected him on the 9th Heaven Mountain back then. Today, he was old. He could die, but the future of the Yinma clan could not be destroyed. Wuxia's expression was calm. He shouted to retreat, but his body moved to meet Yunmengzi's mighty sword. He formed a complicated seal, and a surging devil chi condensed behind him. This was a seal that his brother had passed on to him in the past. It did not have a name. Because after using this seal technique and risking his life, his big brother directly died, and he didn't even have a name. The devil chi triggered by this nameless seal was so powerful that half of the sky had been dyed black. Just as Wuxia's seal was about to be completed, an ear-piercing whistling sound was heard. The black arrow seemed to pass through space, and with a destructive fire, it drew a long trajectory and directly bombarded Yunmengzi's arrow. With a loud bang, the pure yang energy and the power of nirvanic extermination cancelled each other out and exploded, bursting out waves of terrifying waves. At this moment, everyone present turned to look behind them. The moment they saw this arrow, they knew that Chu Xiu had finally returned. For the entire Yinma clan, or more accurately, all the forces under Chu Xiu, only he, Chu Xiu, was the only core. Wuxia had prestige, and Shang Tianliang had strength, but neither of them could replace Chu Xiu. Before Chu Xiu had appeared, everyone was already on the verge of collapse. However, the moment Chu Xiu returned, the collapse was completely reversed. Everyone seemed to have gained a lot of strength for nothing. On the other hand, when the people from the righteous sects looked at Chu Xiu, they could not help but reveal a hint of panic and even fear. Chu Xiu's reputation wasn't given to him by others. It was earned with the blood and lives of countless people. It could even be said that the deterrence that Chu Xiu brought to them was even greater than that of Shang Tianliang, a mysterious heaven and earth realm expert. At this moment, even the people of Sword King's city who were watching from the side were stunned. They had never expected that Chu Xiu's appearance would cause such a great impact. Glancing at the battlefield, although everyone was in a sorry state, there were not many casualties. LV Fengxian had even broken through to the true fire spirit refinement realm, and Mei Qinglian's aura had also soared. Chu Xiu smiled and said, "I'm sorry, everyone. I've been overseas for a long time. However, judging from your expressions, I'm not too late." Lu Jiang, he snapped, "You're not too late. If you were any later, you would only be able to collect our corpses." Chu Xiu looked at the people of the Chunyang Dao sect and the other righteous path sects and narrowed his eyes. "Don't worry. Even if I have to collect your corpses, I will send them down to be buried with you." Ling Yunzi and the others present had dealt with Chu Xiu before, so they knew that Chu Xiu's words were not harsh. He was definitely capable of doing such a thing. This was the first time Yunmengzi and Han Jusi had seen Chu Xiu. They had seen the famous Chu Xiu of their righteous path sects, and they hated him to the core. It could be said that Chu Xiu was even more extraordinary than what Yunmengzi and the others had imagined. Based on his aura alone, they could no longer regard Chu Xiu as a martial artist of the younger generation. Instead, he was an overlord of the devil path who could compete with them in Jianghu. Yunmengzi shook his head and said, "Before you appeared, we were worried that you would not be able to find a mysterious heaven and earth realm expert to change the situation. But now it seems that you have no reinforcements, and there is no breakthrough. Chu Xiu, this is the general trend. You can't stop it alone." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "The general trend? I've never believed in the general trend. Besides, how do you know whose side the general trend is on?" Chapter 1026. Yunmengzi wasn't afraid that Chu Xiu's appearance had turned the tables on both sides. Momentum was momentum, strength was strength, and the saying that soldiers with righteous indignation were bound to win was just an exception. However, what really made Yunmengzi uncertain was that Chu Xiu seemed to be very relaxed, as if he had already solved the problem in front of him. Where did he get his confidence from? At this moment, Chu Xiu suddenly turned his gaze to Zhao Yuanfeng. An inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Pavilion leader Zhao, to be precise, should I call you Prince Zhao now? Your Jiangshan pavilion has been doing well overseas. Why do you have to intervene in the conflict of the Central Plains warriors? It's one thing for you to intervene, but you went back on your word and chose to cooperate with Eastern Qi. That's a bit too much. Zhao Yuanfeng said calmly, the Northern Yen pulled Jiangshan Pavilion to the Central Plains just to make use of us. Since we're all using each other, why don't I find a powerful backer to be used? That would make me more valuable, wouldn't it? People in the pugilistic world have no control over themselves. Official Chu, Jiangshan Pavilion didn't mean to be your enemy, but now we have no choice. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, that's fine. Since you didn't mean it, I'll forgive you. Take the people from the River Mountain Pavilion and leave, and I won't pursue this matter. Hearing this, Zhao Yuanfeng and the others were stunned. Chu Xiu didn't play by the rules. He had only said a few words. Why did Chu Xiu take it seriously? The elder from the Zhao family of Jiangshan Pavilion snorted. All right, why are you wasting time talking to him? Let's get this over with. Previously, when Jiangshan Pavilion had just entered Yanjing City, he had a conflict with Chu Xiu. This Zhao family elder still retained some of the royal family's behavior in the past and viewed that incident as a disgrace. Therefore, when Jiangshan Pavilion switched to Eastern Qi, this elder of the Zhao family had put in a lot of effort. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, it seems that Jiangshan Pavilion is still unrepentant. Forget it, people always have to be responsible for the decisions they make. Pavilion Master Zhao, I'll give you a present today. As soon as Chu Xiu finished speaking, he threw something at Zhao Yuanfeng, which rolled to his feet. It was a human head. When he saw the head, Zhao Yuanfeng's expression suddenly changed. He cried out involuntarily, Godfather. The head that Chu Xiu threw to him was Huixingzuan's head. Once Huixingzuan was dead, his body was naturally useless. Therefore, before he left, Chu Xiu remembered that Jiangshan Pavilion had also attacked Eastern Qi, so he asked Pak Donglai for Huixingzuan's head as a surprise for Zhao Yuanfeng. Now, it seemed that this surprise was enough. At least, Zhao Yuanfeng's current appearance was indeed very shocking. As for whether he was happy or not, only he himself knew. You killed Godfather. How could you possibly kill Godfather? The moment he saw Huixingzuan's head, Zhao Yuanfeng completely lost his composure. Actually, when Huixingzuan died, Zhao Yuanfeng wasn't that sad. It had to be said that Huixingzuan was a failure as a godfather. He bound his godsons with benefits, and there was no familial love between them. For example, back on Paragon Island, Fu Longxiao had thought of abandoning Huixingzuan and escaping on his own. Now that he saw Huixingzuan's corpse, Zhao Yuanfeng was more shocked than sad. Although he didn't have any feelings for Huixingzuan, he knew how powerful Huixingzuan's influence in the Breeze Sea was. He was a supreme figure who lived up to his name. But now, his head was brought to him by Chu Xiu. What did this prove? It proved that there was a huge change in the Breeze Sea. The Hua family on Paragon Island had been completely overthrown. As Huixingzuan's godson, his foundation in the Breeze Sea was gone. He couldn't return to Jiangshan Pavilion anymore. Moreover, as the pavilion master of Jiangshan Pavilion, and Huixingzuan thought highly of him, Zhao Yuanfeng was very capable. He thought for a while, and his body instantly turned cold. Chu Xiu was the core figure of the Yinma clan. But after the Eastern Qi imperial court and the righteous martial arts world attacked the Northern Yen for such a long time, he didn't show up except to solve the predicament of the Guanzhong torture room. This was very suspicious. Now that Chu Xiu came here with Huixingzuan's head, it was obvious where he had been during this period. Thinking of the location of the Breeze Sea and the fact that Eastern Qi had put all the powerful armies on the 9 borders, Zhao Yuanfeng had vaguely figured out Chu Xiu's plan. This time, Jiangshan Pavilion might really be on the wrong side. The others didn't know how much Zhao Yuanfeng was thinking. They actually didn't know much about Zhao Yuanfeng's background. Seeing that Chu Xiu threw out ahead and Zhao Yuanfeng called him his adoptive father, they thought that Chu Xiu just killed an old man of Jiangshan Pavilion, who was Zhao Yuanfeng's adoptive father, to vent his anger. They didn't know what Zhao Yuanfeng's adoptive father represented. Seeing that Zhao Yuanfeng's state was not right, and even the momentum of the whole battle had changed since Chu Xiu showed up, Yun Mengzi and Han Jusi looked at each other and shouted together, "Kill! Don't stop!" The first spurt of energy, the second spurt of energy, the third spurt of energy. Originally, the righteous martial arts world wasn't united, and there were more people who wanted to fish in troubled waters. At this time, if they let Chu Xiu continue to talk like this, there might be some changes. Cut the Gordian knot, and kill the enemy in one spurt of energy, no conspiracy or trick would work. Chu Xiu looked at Shang Tianliang and said, "City Lord Shang, can you still hold on?" The meridians in Shang Tianliang's body had been penetrated by pure yang sword qi, and now he seemed a little weak. "We won't be able to hold on for long. If you don't bring reinforcements, I won't be able to hold on any longer." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Don't worry, it won't be long before news comes." Just after Chu Xiu left the East Sea, Pak Donglai and the others had gathered the elites of the East Sea at the fastest speed, and began to attack the coastal border of Eastern Qi. At present, except for the elite guards in Great Liang City of Eastern Qi, the other 9 border-strong armies had been pulled to the northern Yan border by Eastern Qi. The martial arts forces in the East Sea did not even have the slightest understanding of battle formations. They only needed to attack chaotically for a while, and the ordinary troops left by Eastern Qi would not be able to hold on. Therefore, Eastern Qi would have to retreat as soon as possible. Of course, at the moment, it was still up to Chu Xiu and the others to carry on. Looking at Yun Mengzi and Han Jusi, a dangerous glint flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes. He already knew that this war between the righteous and demonic factions was caused by these two. After being locked in the primitive demon's lair for 800 years, they still did not learn their lesson. As soon as they came out, they wanted to cause trouble. Damn it! The evil moon saber was already in Chu Xiu's hand, and the inner demon was suppressing the weapon spirit of the evil moon saber. In an instant, the blood moon bloomed, and the saber light distorted the surrounding space. With a slash, Chu Xiu went straight for Yun Mengzi. At this moment, Yun Mengzi had a feeling that he was being stared at by some terrifying beast. In the next moment, Yun Mengzi's body shone with pure yang astral energy, and the sword light traversed the sky. The surrounding heaven and earth yuan qi was like a raging storm, gathering around his sword. The blood moon on the evil moon saber distorted space, and no matter what kind of power it was, it would be distorted by the blood moon. Chu Xiu's saber slashed down with extreme strength, and it also contained the saber intent of the broken sea of the 7 limits. It was as if it could shatter mountains and break rivers, and everything was collapsing. When the sword and blade collided, an intense shockwave instantly erupted forth. Yun Mengzi instantly felt an unbearable force rushing towards him. A crack appeared on his divine weapon, and his entire person was sent flying by Chu Xiu's slash. Fresh blood splattered from his body as he flew through the air. At this moment, everyone was stunned. As for Yun Mengzi, he was an expert from 800 years ago, so most people were unfamiliar with him. However, they were not unfamiliar with the position of the head of the 6 Temple Protector spiritual masters. Throughout history, those who could sit in this position in Chunyang Dao sect were not weak. Mako Mori looked at Chu Xiu in horror. How long had it been? Compared to when he was in the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu's strength had improved. His strength was a bit stronger than when he was in the Guanzhong torture room. Perhaps the most terrifying thing about Chu Xiu was not his strength, but the speed of his improvement. When you were still looking at him with the old eyes, and when you were still using your old strength to plot against him, he could come up with unexpected strength and smash everything you had planned. Seeing that Chu Xiu's saber slashed Yun Mengzi until he vomited blood, Han Jusi's expression changed, and he shouted in a low voice, "Let's attack together." He's not at the heaven and earth mystic realm, so what are you afraid of? Unless he was at the heaven and earth mystic realm and had the strength to effect the battle, he would die of exhaustion. Just like when Xiang Chong held the 9-dragon seal and unleashed the power of the dragon vein, it was infinitely close to the heaven and earth mystic realm, but in the end, he was the first to collapse. As Han Jusi's voice fell, he and Lu Chonglu attacked Chu Xiu together. At the same time, Zhao Yuanfeng and the elder from the Zhao clan also rushed over. Together with Yun Mengzi, who had been beaten to the point of vomiting blood, they got up again. A total of 5 people at the True Fire Spirit Refinement realm surrounded Chu Xiu. Being attacked by so many True Fire Spirit Refinement realm powerhouses at the same time, even Xiang Chong, who had previously unleashed the power of the 9-dragon seal, did not receive such treatment. There was a hint of coldness in Chu Xiu's eyes, but he did not retreat. At the moment, almost all of Elder Wei and the others were injured. If he did not appear, they might really not be able to resist. Therefore, at the moment, the more firepower he could attract, the better. It would be best to let the battle fall into his own rhythm. In fact, the entire battle had unknowingly fallen into Chu Xiu's rhythm. As soon as he appeared, he gained the upper hand, so Yun Mengzi and Han Jusi paid great attention to him, and they focused all their strength on him. In fact, if Han Jusi and the others spread out and desperately tried to kill Wei Shuya and the others, Chu Xiu could only rescue them first. Chapter 1027. In terms of attracting hatred, Chu Xiu was considered to be quite talented. Just like now, as long as he stood out, he would immediately become the target of everyone's attacks. Of course, this was exactly what Chu Xiu needed. The 5 people attacked together, but Chu Xiu ignored them and charged toward Yun Mengzi first. Seeing Chu Xiu's action, Yun Mengzi was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood again. Just now, Chu Xiu was aiming at him. Now, with so many people attacking together, he was obviously the last one. Why did they target him? Yun Mengzi had already experienced Chu Xiu's power, and he didn't want to experience it again. Holding his sword in front of him, Yun Mengzi pinched a Daoist seal with his hand. In an instant, the Daoist runes bloomed in front of him. Lu Chonglu of the real martial arts sect waved the horsetail whisk in his hand. Extremely pure qi of heaven and earth was gathered in the horsetail whisk by him and wrapped around Chu Xiu. His horsetail whisk was left by Ning Xuanji in the past. The Taoist connotation was self-generated, and the qi of heaven and earth that was drawn over was extremely pure. It was as if the world itself was restraining Chu Xiu. At the same time, Han Jusi's figure followed closely behind. One by one, the Taoist patterns were quickly drawn in his hand and hovered around his body. Han Jusi's hand seemed to be holding the sun and the moon. 2 forces, clear and muddy, condensed in front of him. Heaven and earth furnace, yin and yang creation. The 2 forces reached an extremely delicate balance in his arms. As the power of the Taoist patterns flourished, Han Jusi smashed toward Chu Xiu's seal. The huge furnace that was condensed by the qi of heaven and earth and yin and yang also went straight toward Chu Xiu. The power contained in it was simply shocking. Lu Chonglu and Han Jusi were both from the real martial arts sect. At this time, they cooperated with each other very well. Lu Chonglu was a gentle person. He was a well-known kind person in the martial world. Even his martial arts attack power was not too strong. On the contrary, it was miraculous for him to assist from the side. In Han Jusi's era, even the Daoist sects were very aggressive. Therefore, Han Jusi was more radical. However, at this time, when the 2 of them joined forces, their martial arts complemented each other. The power was also shocking. Immediately after, Zhao Yuanfeng's finger landed. The force of his finger penetrated the void. It was invisible and intangible, but it caused the surrounding air to emit a violent sonic boom. Wave-breaking finger could split water and break waves. If this was used in the sea, it would be enough to shake the waves for a few miles. The elder from the Zhao clan also slammed his palm down. The palm force transformed into a boundless giant wave, and its power was incomparably vast. It was also Chu Xiu's first time fighting with so many true fire spirit refinement realm martial artists of the same level. Zhao of Shou of 1, he of was more powerful than of was. The reason was very simple. When facing a person alone, even if you wanted to fight to the end, you would only need to focus on that person. However, in the face of being surrounded by so many people, it was inevitable that one's energy would be scattered, especially when the people surrounding you were not weak. If you were careless in any aspect, it could lead to your defeat. However, Chu Xiu's method of breaking out of this situation was very simple. Since there were so many of them, he would kill as many as he could until there were fewer of them. Chu Xiu's body was burning with internal true fire. At the same time, it was mixed with the black world extinguishing fire. A powerful force suddenly broke out. After the world extinguishing fire broke free from Lu Chengliu's restraint, it followed the trajectory of Lu Chengliu's true qi. It moved toward his horsetail whisk and even his body. The power of the world extinguishing fire was evil. At least, Lu Chengliu did not want to be touched by it. Therefore, he began to retreat. His Taoist connotation burst out to resist the world extinguishing fire. The evil moon saber was held in Chu Xiu's hand. As the saber fell, the twisted blood moon turned into a sharp bloodline in an instant, tearing and cutting everything. The saber essence of the break formula slashed out. Everything in front of him was almost cut in half. Space was cut and time was torn. The huge furnace formed by the yin and yang power of heaven and earth was extremely violent and unstable. As long as the Taoist pattern on it melted, it would immediately explode. However, under the attack of Chu Xiu's break formula, the furnace was neatly cut in half. Heaven returned to heaven, earth returned to earth, yin returned to yin, and yang returned to yang. It was as if that power had never existed. In the blink of an eye, it had already dissipated between heaven and earth. However, Chu Xiu's break formula didn't stop. It continued to slash at Han Jusi. A Taoist sword with talismans carved on it was held in Han Jusi's hand. In an instant, 81 talismans were pointed out by the long sword. His speed was even faster than the sword cultivators of the 5 major sword sects. However, it was still useless. Under the saber essence of Chu Xiu's break formula, the power of the saber was simply invincible. 81 talismans were laid out in an instant. However, they were instantly destroyed by Chu Xiu. At this moment, the scorching pure yang sword light fell. Yunmengzi, who had been abandoned by Chu Xiu as a target, made a timely move and blocked in front of Han Jusi. There was a loud explosion. Yunmengzi had finally helped Han Jusi block Chu Xiu's saber. However, his divine weapon Taoist sword, which had already been chipped, was completely cut in half by Chu Xiu's break formula. Han Jusi looked at Yunmengzi with lingering fear and said in a low voice, "Thank you." Yunmengzi's expression was somewhat complicated. He looked at Chu Xiu and said with an indescribable complex expression, "We miscalculated." Han Jusi's expression also changed. "Yes, we miscalculated." Their target this time was Chu Xiu, but their miscalculation was also on Chu Xiu. They had never imagined that Chu Xiu's strength would actually be so powerful. It was simply powerful to the point of being unreasonable. Yunmengzi gritted his teeth and said, "Delay. Even if we can't win, we must delay. As long as we block the Yinma clan and the Northern Yen martial world, the Northern Yen Imperial Court will not be able to hold on for long. When the Northern Yen Imperial Court is completely defeated, it will also be the day that Chu Xiu's foundation is destroyed. At that time, even if they don't lose here, their foundation in Northern Yen will be burned to the ground and their vitality will be greatly damaged." Han Jusi also nodded calmly, but he did not know that they had miscalculated more than this. At this moment, Chu Xiu had just used the break formula to cut Yunmengzi's weapon in half, and Zhao Yuanfeng's powerful wave breaker finger had already arrived in front of him. Without dodging, Chu Xiu's Mahakala devil god Dharma form suddenly appeared behind him. In his third eye, the scorching hot destructive fire suddenly burst out, meeting the wave breaker finger's wave breaker finger. When the two collided, the scattered world extinguishing flames landed on the ground, instantly burning a huge pit. At this moment, Chu Xiu's figure shot out like a cannonball. His body was burning with internal true fire, and he punched out directly at the Zhao family elder. No one present had expected that Chu Xiu would suddenly change his target. The power of the punch was even more shocking. Chu Xiu's figure had already arrived in front of the Zhao family elder, and suddenly a sonic boom was heard. It was earth-shattering, and the domineering fist intent seemed to be tearing the sky and earth apart. Not long ago, Chu Xiu had used such a punch to kill Bailey Paobing, the East Sea's #1 warrior. This Zhao family elder was not young, and he looked like he was about to die. He could not be compared to Bailey Paobing at all. The palm strength that was considered powerful in the eyes of others was extremely fragile in the eyes of Chu Xiu. Feeling the power of Chu Xiu's punch, the Zhao family elder was extremely shocked. While withdrawing his power, the Zhao family elder shouted in horror, "Save me!" Although Zhao Yuanfeng could not stand the Zhao family elder using his seniority to suppress him, he was, after all, a true fire refinement state expert of Jiangshan Pavilion. He was a part of Jiangshan Pavilion's power, and he could not just watch him die here. The others present were the same, and they all rushed toward Chu Xiu. It was true that they did not have any friendship with the Zhao family elder. But now they had a common enemy, and that was Chu Xiu. They were all true fire refinement state warriors, and no one was so short-sighted. At this time, they were still playing the game of fighting on their own, allowing Chu Xiu to defeat them one by one. However, just as they were about to make a move, the Mahakala devil god Dharma idol that had intercepted Zhao Yuanfeng before suddenly exploded, and a large amount of world-destroying fire instantly enveloped all of them. Condensing the Dharma idol consumed a lot of spiritual qi. Suddenly destroying the Dharma idol consumed so much that even Chu Xiu's face turned pale. However, all of this was no longer important. With Chu Xiu's current physical strength, his punch had completely shattered the Zhao family's elder's palm force and protective aura with just pure strength alone, completely turning his arm into a bloody mist. The Zhao family elder howled miserably, and a stream of light appeared around him. In the midst of the explosion, water vapor filled the air, but it forcibly reduced the power of Chu Xiu's punch by half. After all, the Zhao family elder was in existence in the true fire refinement state. Although the Zhao family elder was not very strong, he still had some trump cards. Otherwise, Chu Xiu's punch could have easily killed him. But before he could react, Chu Xiu had already arrived in front of him, grabbed him by the neck, and said coldly, "Is overseas not enough for you Jiangshan Pavilion to play with? You want to come to the Central Plains to stir up trouble? The Qing dynasty has fallen, and you still want to restore the country and pretend to be a royal family? You're just a group of poor people who don't know what you're talking about." The Zhao clan's elder had yet to react to what the great Qing dynasty was. Their Zhao clan's previous name was not Qing either. At the next moment, Chu Xiu's fist had already appeared before his eyes. With a loud explosion, Chu Xiu's fist smashed the Zhao clan's elder's head into pieces. He then casually threw the headless corpse to one side. The whole battlefield suddenly fell into a strange silence. The righteous path and the devil path had been fighting for so long that even Shang Tianliang, who was in the mysterious realm of heaven and earth, had been injured. But it was the first time that an existence in the true fire refinement state had fallen, and he had died so miserably. Seeing the Zhao family elder's headless body thrown to the ground like a pile of rotten meat, the warriors of the righteous path suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. Chapter 1028. Even in the eyes of most of the big sects, cultivators at the spiritual refinement realm with true fire were unattainable. It was normal for cultivators at this realm to die or be killed. After all, there would always be someone stronger than you. However, Chu Xiu had killed a cultivator at the spiritual refinement realm with 2 punches as easily as killing a chicken. This scene was too shocking. Zhao Yuanfeng and the others broke through the shackles of the destructive fire. When they saw that the elder of the Zhao family was killed by Chu Xiu with 1 punch, their faces were extremely gloomy. Shameful, utterly shameful. It was 5 against 1, yet one of them was easily killed. Wasn't that embarrassing enough? But at the same time, they had to admit that although Chu Xiu was at the same realm as them, the spiritual refinement realm with true fire, his combat strength had almost reached the peak of the entire realm. The current Chu Xiu even made Zhao Yuanfeng think of one person, the sword sage of the Eastern Sea, Kang Dongming. That person used to be his foreign minister, but even he had to treat him politely, not daring to have any malice. Invincible among those at the same realm, the current Chu Xiu was almost qualified to be called that. The first one. Chu Xiu stretched out a finger, thinking that in the next moment, he would directly attack Yunmengzi. Again. Yunmengzi's expression suddenly changed. This time, the four of them directly attacked together, concentrating their strength on one point, intercepting Chu Xiu at the same time. In the next moment, Chu Xiu made a seal with his hand, and wisps of black aura bloomed from his body, pouring into the world, as if he was drawing the most extreme power of evil in this world. In the next moment, a ghostly murmur could be faintly heard. In the end, the murmur even turned into a mournful wail. As the voice descended, a scarlet rain of blood fell. The ferocious demon tore open the world in the void. With a palm strike, the joint attack of the four was instantly shattered. The four of them were directly blasted into the ground, leaving only a huge handprint on the ground. Once the devil-grieving heaven-weeping mantra was unleashed, its might was simply earth-shattering. The four of them were unable to stop it at all. Chu Xiu's inner force, true fire and world-extinguishing fire burned together. Zhao Yuanfeng rushed over and was sent flying with a punch. Lu Changlu slashed out with his Dao sword, but Lu Changliu's divine weapon was shattered by his blade. Han Jiu wanted to set up a killing array to suppress it, but the world annihilation fire directly burned him into ashes. In the end, only Yunmengzi was left, struggling bitterly under Chu Xiu's attacks. However, without a weapon, he was beaten to the point of vomiting blood by Chu Xiu in just a few moves. Yunmengzi gritted his teeth and did not retreat. 800 years ago, he was also a genius of the generation. At this time, he had just stepped into the martial world again and caused such a huge storm. He did not believe that he would die like this, nor did he believe that he would be defeated like this. A blood-red sun rose from behind Yunmengzi. Within the boiling sun, there was a burning hot qi and blood, like magma. Seeing that Yunmengzi was about to go all out, Han Jusi and the others immediately wanted to help him. At this moment, Chu Xiu suddenly said, "Pavilion Master Zhao, I gave you a chance before, but you did not cherish it. Now, I'll give you another chance to choose a side. Although I was the one who killed that old guy from Jiangshan Pavilion, killing him is equivalent to helping you get rid of a piece of trash who was holding you back. If you betray me, Wei County will still be yours. As long as you give up the title of the country and come to Yanjing City to ask for forgiveness, I can protect your Jiangshan Pavilion. If you insist on being stubborn, you should know the outcome. The others may not know, but can't you predict who will win and who will lose? I've already given you Hua Xingzuan's head. Why? Do you want me to go to the East China Sea and bring you the heads of Bailey Paobing, Fu Longshao, and Nalan Hai?" Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Zhao Yuanfeng's heart was instantly filled with a chill. The fact that Chu Xiu could name those people proved that his guess was right. Supreme Island was completely gone. If the fifth Lord Hua and the others were still around, even if he suffered in the Central Plains, he could still return to the overseas and make a comeback. But now that the fifth Lord Hua and the others were gone, would there still be a place for him to stay if he returned to the East China Sea? Moreover, he was now on the side of Eastern Qi and the righteous pugilistic world. If he lost this time, would Wei County still have a place for him? By then, there would be no place for him in the Central Plains, overseas, or even in the vast pugilistic world. Just as Zhao Yuanfeng was hesitating, Han Jusi and the others saw the hesitation on his face. Traitors, no matter where they were, weren't welcomed by people. If Zhao Yuanfeng could choose to betray the Northern Yan once, he could naturally choose to betray them again. When they heard Chu Xiu's words, there was no reason for them not to be suspicious. Seeing the expressions on Han Jusi and the others' faces, Zhao Yuanfeng smiled bitterly in his heart. He knew that they were beginning to suspect him. He did not blame Chu Xiu for trying to sow discord. It was just that they were in a union of benefits, and there were too many loopholes between them. Especially for people like Xiao Yuanfeng, he did not care about the righteous or the evil. All he cared about was benefits. Now that he had aroused Han Jussi's suspicions, Zhao Yuanfeng gritted his teeth and used the wave-breaker finger to attack Han Jussi. He had been forced into a corner and had chosen to go against Chu Xiu. There was no way for him to survive. Since he chose to betray them, he could only hope that Chu Xiu would choose to keep his promise. Zhao Yuanfeng. I knew that a shameless villain like you is absolutely unreliable. Seeing that Zhao Yuanfeng had betrayed them, Han Jussi could not help but curse angrily. Zhao Yuanfeng gritted his teeth and said, "When you tempted me, Jiangshan Pavilion, to help you, you made extravagant claims, saying that you would definitely win. What about now? The coast of Eastern Qi is about to be lost. How long can you hold on?" Han Jussi was stunned. What coast? Did something go wrong with Eastern Qi? Han Jussi was a martial artist from 800 years ago. He could not even recognize some of the forces in the Jianghu today, let alone those from overseas. But now that Zhao Yuanfeng had attacked, he had no time to ask any more questions. Seeing that Zhao Yuanfeng had successfully betrayed them, Chu Xiu swung the blade in his hand and used the misty slash. In an instant, the boiling blood-red sun behind Yunmengzi suddenly froze in place. The misty slash froze time and space. Yunmengzi roared, and all the blood and qi in his body began to boil and explode. That blood-red sun was so dazzling that it seemed as if he had used all of his strength to break free from the misty slash's imprisonment. But at this moment, Chu Xiu abruptly withdrew his blade, formed a seal with his hand, and spat out 2 words to Yunmengzi, "Goodbye." In the next moment, countless blood-red patterns erupted from Chu Xiu's body, affecting the qi and blood in Yunmengzi's body. The power of the blood demon divine art was unleashed to the extreme by Chu Xiu in an instant. Previously, in order to break free from the restraints of Chu Xiu's misty slash, Yunmengzi had completely unleashed the power of his blood qi to the point where he was unable to control it. Now, under the influence of Chu Xiu's blood demon power, it was like a bomb that had been ignited. With a loud bang, the huge blood-red sun had exploded before it could even reach Chu Xiu. In an instant, the entire battlefield was shrouded in blood-red sunlight, and Yunmengzi had been completely blown to pieces by the power he had gathered with all his might. The second one. Chu Xiu stretched out 2 fingers, but quickly retracted them. This was because it was similar to the hand gesture of, "yeah," when taking a picture. It was not a serious gesture in this situation, although no one here knew what it meant. Grandmaster. Ling Yunzi, who was suppressing Shang Tianliang, roared angrily. His eyes were red, and it was obvious that he was extremely angry. In fact, Ling Yunzi did not have any feelings for Grandmaster Yunmengzi. Although Yunmengzi was indeed his grandmaster in terms of seniority, there was no debt of gratitude between them. He was even a little dissatisfied with Yunmengzi's radical character. However, no matter what, Yunmengzi was still a member of his Chunyang Dao sect. The leader of the 6 spiritual masters of this generation of Chunyang Dao sect died in the hands of Chu Xiu, and the leader of the 6 spiritual masters 800 years ago died in the hands of Chu Xiu. So, the leader of the 6 spiritual masters of Chunyang Dao sect was killed by Chu Xiu? This was too much. If Chu Xiu were to continue killing, their pure Yang Dao sect would simply become a laughingstock. In the end, no one would sit on this seat even if it was given to someone else for fear of being killed. Seeing that Chu Xiu had successfully angered a powerhouse in the mysterious realm of heaven and earth, Shang Tianliang immediately wanted to stop him. However, Chu Xiu said, "City Master Shang, let him come over. You deal with the others." Now that Shang Tianliang was seriously injured, he would not be able to stop Ling Yunzi for long. However, if the seriously injured Shang Tianliang were to deal with other martial artists in the spiritual cultivation realm of true fire, it would be much easier. As for whether Chu Xiu could stop Ling Yunzi, he had a certain degree of confidence. During the overseas trip, Chu Xiu's realm did not increase, but his understanding of the spiritual cultivation realm of true fire had increased to a higher level, and his combat power had increased a little. To put it simply, the current Chu Xiu was a little too arrogant. He believed that he had the strength to go against the mysterious realm of heaven and earth. Ling Yunzi came over in anger. He pointed the pure yang sword in his hand, and in an instant, thousands of sword flashes descended from the sky. A scorching aura instantly enveloped Chu Xiu. At that instant, Chu Xiu felt like he was above the sun. He could no longer see anything in front of him except for the glaring pure yang radiance. In the past, before Ling Yunzi had stepped into the mysterious realm of heaven and earth, Chu Xiu had fought with him, so he knew Ling Yunzi quite well. But today, when Ling Yunzi attacked again, even Chu Xiu had to admit that the difference between the mysterious realm of heaven and earth and the spiritual cultivation realm of true fire was like heaven and earth. From borrowing the power of heaven and earth to controlling the heaven and earth, Ling Yunzi had complete control over this area. Chu Xiu gave a low roar, and the evil moon saber bloomed with a blood moon. The moment the saber intent of the break formula appeared, it sliced through everything. The pure yang radiance was torn apart. The saber and sword collided, and a terrifying aura exploded. With the two of them as the epicenter, the scattered saber aura shattered the earth and rocks, but it was instantly melted by the scorching pure yang astral qi. Within a radius of a few hundred feet, it was like a lava hell. Chapter 1029. An existence at the mystic heaven and earth realm was not easy to block. Even though Chu Xiu was confident before, after exchanging a blow with Ling Yunzi, Chu Xiu's evil moon saber suddenly let out a sorrowful cry. The violent aura was constantly trembling, and Chu Xiu even had to exert himself to suppress the evil moon saber. What's going on? It shouldn't be time yet. Mental Demon said helplessly, it's not time yet, but I can't suppress the evil moon saber anymore. Your opponent is too strong, and that extreme pure yang power is not something that the evil moon saber can resist. His sword is not ordinary, and it has even injured the evil moon saber's weapon spirit. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes. Of course, he knew that his opponent's sword was not ordinary. It was Ancestor Lu's sword of pure yang in the past. However, he did not expect the evil moon saber to be so fragile that it could not withstand a single blow. Indeed, it was not convenient to use a weapon that was not his own. After putting away the evil moon saber, Ling Yunzi's longsword vibrated, drawing all the pure yang power in the world. It formed a huge domain and attacked Chu Xiu. Experts at the mystic heaven and earth realm controlled heaven and earth. In this domain, they were like gods. The power of such suppression was not ordinary. The devil whale heaven weeping great compassion mantra was unleashed once again. As the heaven weeping blood rain descended, the innate demon god tore the domain apart. However, it wasn't able to deal much damage to Ling Yunzi. After exchanging a few blows with Ling Yunzi, Chu Xiu was suppressed by Ling Yunzi. Now, he finally knew how big the gap was between him and an ordinary expert at the mystic heaven and earth realm like Ling Yunzi. Chu Xiu was able to block his opponent's attacks, but practically every time he blocked, he would have to use his full strength, using all of his strength in order to be able to contend against them. On the other hand, although Ling Yunzi was furious, he had been stabilizing his power to a certain level. He was waiting for Chu Xiu to be unable to hold on any longer. Then, he would strike like a thunderbolt and destroy Chu Xiu completely with the swiftest power. To be honest, this kind of fighting style was not very good to look at. Most warriors advocated for a thunderous strike, directly defeating the opponent. Ling Yunzi, who was in the profound enlightenment of heaven and earth realm, was fighting against Chu Xiu, a martial artist in the true fire spirit refinement realm. He was bullying the weak with his strength, and he even used this kind of fighting method. It was inevitable that people would look down on him. However, Ling Yunzi himself did not feel that way. To him, if he could successfully kill Chu Xiu, what was his reputation worth? Although this seemingly gentle and steady fighting style could not do anything to Chu Xiu for the time being, it made Chu Xiu feel that it was even more troublesome. Suddenly, Chu Xiu spoke to the side, "Everyone from Sword King City, stop watching the show and lend me a hand. I have something good for all of you." The people from Sword King City had been watching the show for a long time. Previously, they had thought that the hidden devil lineage would definitely lose. However, who would have thought that after Chu Xiu appeared, his actions would be reversed? However, not long after the reversal, Chu Xiu's side was once again being suppressed by Ling Yunzi. Now, even Heavenly King Shen did not dare to say which side would win this battle. Therefore, he wisely chose not to get involved in this matter and chose to watch the show. Even Heavenly King Shen was taken aback by Chu Xiu's sudden words. He really dared to speak up. One had to know that the relationship between Sword King City and Chu Xiu was not harmonious. Although he was good friends with Fang Qishao, Sword King City did not belong to Fang Qishao alone. He could not influence Sword King City's attitude toward Chu Xiu and the hidden devil lineage. It was already kind enough that he did not add insult to injury, but Chu Xiu actually wanted them to help him. What was he thinking? Did he think that Sword King City was so easy to deal with? However, before Heavenly King Shen could speak, Chu Xiu quickly took out a pill that radiated sword qi after blocking Ling Yunzi's attack. He said, "Legend has it that a sword pill left behind by an ancient sword cultivator. This is completely intact. Take it and it will be enough for Sword King City to deduce the complete mystic art of condensing a sword pill. Is this enough for Sword King City to help us?" The moment they saw the sword pill, the cultivators of Sword King City were tempted. Although it was recorded in the ancient records that something like a sword pill was too time-consuming, the gains did not make up for the losses in condensing it. However, the Sword King City's martialists would spend most of their time cultivating in the desolate and uninhabited western desert. Therefore, they had the most time. Most importantly, as a sword cultivator, no one could refuse such a famous mystic art from ancient times. Seeing that the people of Sword King City were tempted, Ling Yunzi immediately said, "Sect Master Shen, this is the battlefield of the righteous path and the fiend path. Both sides are destined to fight to the death. It's fine if Sword King City didn't join in, but if you join in now, you will become an enemy of the righteous path." Heavenly King Shen laughed and said, "Daoist Ling Yunzi, this kind of threat is meaningless. Sword King City is far away in the western desert. We usually don't become enemies with the Central Plains warriors, not because we are magnanimous, but because we don't have enough benefits. But I'm sorry, Sword King City has already seen the benefits. If we don't join in, how can we face ourselves? If you can also take out something comparable to the sword pill, we can also counterattack Chu Xiu now. After all, the highest bidder wins. Even if we sell ourselves, we have to sell ourselves for a good price." Ling Yunzi and the rest of the righteous path were helpless against Heavenly King Shen's blatant utilitarianism. This was because Sword King City had never been a kind party to begin with. In the western desert, there were countless small countries in the western region. To them, Sword King City was definitely a transcendent existence. If they were in a good mood, they would help them dominate a region. If they were in a bad mood, they could casually cut off their king's head and kick it like a ball. It was all very normal. To Sword King City, those who weren't of the same race were bound to have different intentions. Were barbarians even human? Therefore, they didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. At the same time, because Sword King City was dealing with the foreign tribes of the western region, they didn't attract the attention of the Righteous Path sections. Otherwise, if they brought their methods to the Righteous Path sects, they would definitely be banished to the diabolical path. Heavenly King Shen deliberately waited for a while. Seeing that Ling Yunzi didn't say anything, he shook his head and sighed. Looks like sect leader Ling Yunzi can't take out anything to tempt Sword King City. Then I'm sorry. This time, don't blame Sword King City for not standing on your side. Heavenly King Shen was a man who looked rough on the surface but was actually very meticulous. Sword King City didn't stand on anyone's side. They only thought from their own standpoint. Sword King City had sided with the Righteous Path during the Great War between moon-worshipping sect and the Diabolical Path because Yi Xiaonan, the current #1 cultivator of the Diabolical Path, was too powerful. This time, Sword King City had chosen to stand on Chu Xiu's side. It actually didn't have much to do with Feng Qi Shao. It was just that the sword pill, a long-lost cultivation technique, was indeed very tempting to a swordsman. Moreover, this time, the diabolical path had been forced into a corner. Therefore, it was necessary for him to switch sides. With the participation of the Sword King City cultivators, the situation on the battlefield had been completely reversed. Although Shang Tianliang's side was heavily injured, it was still no problem for him to deal with a true fire cultivator at the spirit refinement stage. The remaining ones, Lu Fengxian, Lu Jianghu, and the others, were all people who could fight one against many. In this way, the scales of victory had already been tipped. Intense killing intent flashed across Ling Yunzi's eyes when he saw this. He couldn't let this drag on any longer. Originally, he wanted to exhaust Chu Xiu to death. However, with the addition of Sword King City, he might not be able to exhaust Chu Xiu to death. Instead, he might be the one who couldn't hold on for much longer. The diabolical path had an alliance, but the core of the alliance was Chu Xiu. As long as Chu Xiu didn't die, the alliance wouldn't be destroyed. The righteous path was also an alliance, but even they didn't know what the core of the alliance was. Some did it for personal grudges, some to eliminate demons, and some for benefits. All kinds of people were mixed in. It was fine when the wind was favorable, but once they encountered adversity, it was likely that they would be the first to collapse. Ling Yunzi's longsword slashed across his palm, causing hot blood to splatter along the pure yang sword. The longsword pointed to the sky. At this moment, the world seemed to come to a standstill as the grand sun's radiance poured into Ling Yunzi's body. Experts at the mysterious heaven and earth realm could control a part of the world, but this part of the world also had a limit. Ling Yunzi couldn't control the power of the grand sun. But now, he had forcibly used the pure yang divine weapon as a guide to guide the power of the grand sun into his part of the world and reshape the blazing sun. Sensing this power, Chu Xiu's figure quickly retreated. Although it was worth showing off to force an expert at the mysterious heaven and earth realm to the extreme, it was also extremely dangerous. However, the moment Chu Xiu's figure moved, an endless pulling force suddenly came from behind him, pulling Chu Xiu toward the place where the blazing sun was rising. Like the morning sun rising from the east, the blazing sun grew bigger and bigger, and the pulling force also grew stronger. Forced into a corner, Chu Xiu had no choice but to temporarily give up on escaping. The next moment, boundless blood qi bloomed and rose around his body. Between heaven and earth, the angry roars of demons and gods resounded one after another. Once the blood demon transformation technique was used, the powerful force was even able to compete with the current Ling Yunzi. However, the power of the blood demon transformation technique only existed for a moment. In the next moment, it was already enveloped by the endless grand sun's radiance. Seeing this scene, Heavenly King Shen's expression immediately changed. He didn't care if Chu Xiu died, but the problem was, you should first take out the sword sphere before you die. Now that you're dead, who do we care about getting the sword sphere? As expected, the next time he did something like this, it was more reliable to first ask for the deposit. At this moment, Wei Shiya saw that Chu Xiu was enveloped by the grand sun's radiance. His expression suddenly changed, and he immediately wanted to rescue him. This time, he was already prepared to die. He was an old man with one foot in the grave. If he died, then so be it. However, if Chu Xiu also died, then the Hidden Devil clan would be completely destroyed. However, before he could move, Lu Jianghu stopped him. Narrowing his eyes, he said, "Don't worry, I won't die so easily." With the sect leader's eternal demon pill, no matter how big of a death he seeks, he will still have a chance of survival. Moreover, do you really think that kid is the kind of person who would sacrifice himself for others? Don't joke around. If he didn't have a foolproof plan, he wouldn't have fought head-on. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.